apologize, everyone. Give me 1 minute. I have to take care of something. I have to make a brief phone call. So I promise I'll be like 3-4 minutes maximum. I'll be right back. I'm so sorry. Where's the background green? What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Normal America Show. So, couple things to clear up before we get going here. Firstly, if my computer crashes again tonight, which is likely to happen, I tried to make some adjustments. I got a cooler to try to keep my laptop cool, and tried to make sure I was closing any background task, though there's not many. My computer's literally blank except for things like OBS and the Brave browser and things like that. But if it overheats, go to Twitch, because I can still stream from my phone, but I can only stream to one platform on my phone. So either YouTube, Twitch, or Rumble. And Twitch usually has the most viewers, so I would pick Twitch probably to stream to. I guess I could stream to Twitter as well if I wanted to. So just to clear that up, any of you that are watching, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Rumble, Twitter, or Twitch, and the feed goes away, like in a split second, you know what happened. My computer crashed, and you could go over to Twitch. I'm robnoerr at Twitch. Easy to find. So if you go to Twitch and type in my name as you see it, if you're on YouTube or Rumble, you'll be able to find me. But we'll keep it going under the auspices that my computer won't crash, and we'll try to just do a normal show. Other than that, I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I am. Actually, that's not entirely true. I'm not having the best day. I miss my family. But, you know, it's okay. Be a man, suck it up. Gotta work, you know. It's okay. It's okay. So, but I do miss him. I can't wait to see him. It's even harder knowing that Christmas is right around the corner, and my son's birthday will be shortly thereafter. His birthday is January 9th. My wife's birthday is New Year's Eve, and I'm guaranteed working that night, so I won't see her. Yeah, we'll talk. Maybe we'll play a Viva Frei video here, kind of going over the court decision. I saw that. Let me see. I have a dumb situation occurring. So yeah, I had planned to spend today talking about. One second. The plan was to talk about, I sort of ended the show last night saying at some point this week I wanted to talk about influencers for Desantis, influencers for Trump, some of the behavior that was going on, etc., etc. And so that was what I fully intended to talk about this night. That was what I was going to talk about. And then, of course, Trump has been removed from the primary ballot in Colorado, though it's not quite that simple, but that's in effect what they've said. So probably that's what's on everyone's mind, and that's probably what people want to hear my thoughts on. Now, I don't consider myself a great legal mind or anything like that. We could look at the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, kind of see what's going on. But you don't need a good legal mind to know what's going on. So, it's up to the audience. We could start with that stuff, the Trump being off of the ballot. Can't connect on Rumble? Let me see. It says I'm streaming to Rumble, but you never know. But it's up to the audience. We can start with the Trump ballot stuff, or we can start with the Tucker Carlson interview on Tim Pool. I'm assuming people want to hear about the Trump ballot stuff, so I'll stall for a couple minutes here, and then we'll jump right into that. Viva's video is short and to the point, so I've seen like the first 3 minutes of Viva's video, but I didn't get to finish it, so yeah, we'll watch that. I assume it's good for terms of service. Sometimes I hesitate to play a video while I'm live because these platforms are so finicky, but stuff like that I'm sure will be fine. So my initial thoughts to Trump being kicked off the ballot, before we get into the legality or anything like that, this is, and again, I haven't heard any commentary about this other than like Jonathan Turley. I read an article he had about this. That was all I've read. That's how, in fact, I saw his tweet. That's how I knew this happened like 5 minutes before I was going to come on streaming. This is a naked attempt to try to force some Trump supporter to do something crazy. Don't lose your head. Don't. It's not worth diminishing your own happiness in life or anything like that. And I mean that both in an obvious, I'm steadfast in my belief that political violence is never the answer. So clearly don't do anything extreme like that. But I even mean in your day-to-day life thinking like, this is it, the country's over. It's not worth getting depressed like that. That's not what it means. Thank you so much, Billy. I appreciate the gifted sub. I really do. On Kick there. Thank you so much. Means a lot. That's what this is. That's playing right into their hands. Much like I told people going to rallies around January 6th in 2020, like, be careful, don't do anything stupid. They're trying to provoke you to do something stupid. That's what's going on. It is to change the news cycle because, let's talk about what's going on. Despite a full court press by most of our major institutions, such as the mainstream media, Democratic Party, to try to gaslight American people to actually ignore what you see. The Biden presidency is awesome. The economy's doing great. The border's super secure, right? Oil's being pumped like crazy. Inflation's down. Everything's cheaper for you. Real wages are way up, right? Things are great. Violence is down. Violent crime's down. I saw that this morning. FBI statistics show violent crime's down. And then an awesome one from Kirby today. I forget what Kirby's official position is, but he said, we didn't leave any weapons in Afghanistan. Straight from we never suggested locking down schools. We never said defund the police. We didn't leave weapons in Afghanistan. They want you to ignore reality. And it's the same people that told you COVID couldn't have came from a lab. That's ridiculous. Trust the science. Trust the science. Lockdowns. Trust the science. They have these appeals to authority. And this is the benefit of sort of the capturing of all of these institutions. So the capturing of academia, that's sort of where it started, and the entertainment industry. Those are probably the two places it started, which then generation after generation pumped out people that became more and more radical left, that our establishment was then able to use lip service to, pretending to care about the causes of the radical left in order to entrench themselves in power. It sort of made these institutions monolithic. And when I talk about corruption being the single most important issue, and it's sort of ironic because it dovetails into the other topic I was going to talk about, like Trump versus DeSantis and influence this and that and the other. The reason I tell people on the DeSantis side, like, you'd be a fool if DeSantis doesn't win the primary to not vote for Trump. Thank you so much, Gizmo. You'd be an absolute fool. Similarly, if DeSantis would win and you're a Trump supporter, you'd be a fool to vote because you don't understand. You can't they're getting more and more desperate and more radical. And if we have 4 more years of a Democratic administration and they fear that there's still populism that could jeopardize them entrenching power further in 2028, they'll become even more brazen. We will rapidly get to the point where they could say, you merely criticizing the Democratic president online itself is an act of sedition. You not only should be banned from social media, you should be locked up. We're already locking people up for memes, locking people up for peaceful protesting. We're already subpoenaing records and accounts of anyone who even liked a tweet of the former president. That's where we're going. These moves were predictable. My friend Aftershock asked yesterday, he said, do you trust the polls? Yes and no. I never trust the polls. That doesn't mean they're wrong. I don't trust the polls like I don't trust the FBI. Clearly, the FBI could say things that are honest, that are true. That's certainly within the realm of possibility. Like the FBI could say, hey, there's a serial killer on the prowl in Denver. It doesn't mean they're making that up. That could absolutely be the truth. The point is they've lost so much credibility because they are actually one of the most dangerous institutions to our country right now and should be completely disbanded. So I don't just trust them at face value. Here's an example that's maybe easier. You might hate the mainstream media. You might hate CNN. That doesn't mean everything CNN says is a lie. You just don't trust them blindly. If they say, the official reported GDP from last year was, went up 3%. They might be telling the truth. That very well may be you look it up and you're like, yep, you might not trust those government numbers, but you're like, yeah, that's what the government reported. CNN was correct. But you're not just going to trust CNN's opinion like Trump's a threat to democracy. We have to keep him off the ballot. Like, it's all horseshit, right? So that's where these institutions are going. And we've gotten to the point now where we've had entertainment industry, academia for so long, those things, that now generation after generation of people become more and more radical. Our universities, for example, they're no longer seeking to educate people. They're seeking to churn out radical activists. That's what all the DEI literature, all the critical race theory. You remember when I had this debate with Jangles and we were reading the founding authors of critical race theory, and it said that their job in education was to create activists. And I said, Jangles, do you think that that's the job of schools? And he said, absolutely, for the causes that are good. And I said, like what? He said, like, diversity causes, LGBT and stuff like that. Yes, that's the job of schools, to teach that sort of activism. And I said, should they be teaching our children to be activists against Donald Trump, against Make America Great Again and that agenda? He said, absolutely. And that's the truth. And that's what happened. And there are consequences when that occurs over and over and over and over. Yuri Brezhnev talked about this. This is how you overthrow a country from within. And so now those people are lawyers and judges and police officers and generals and CEOs, social media moguls, media people, and they don't give a shit. At the end of the day, they think the ends justify the means. And it's all connected. Like, you could see this in real time. Harvard takes plagiarism. Maybe you're not in academia. Harvard takes plagiarism very seriously. Right? You might think, who gives a shit? You cribbed a couple lines in your 30-page paper. Who cares? I did that in high school. Maybe that's what you're thinking. But they take it very seriously. The world of academia does. And Harvard's supposed to be the top echelon in the United States. But when the president of Harvard plagiarizes over and over again, it's just like, we don't give a shit, says Harvard. Don't care. Well, what's that have to do with this situation of kicking Trump off the ballot? Because it exhibits the mindset that they're just like, we literally don't give a shit. We don't give a shit about even standards. We don't give a shit about applying the rules and regulations to everyone. We don't give a shit about applying the law to everyone. What we know is there are people that are good because of the groups they're in, and there are people that are bad. There are oppressors and there are oppressed. And the rules should not apply equally to them. And if we feel the oppressors are becoming more powerful and more of a danger to the oppressed, nothing is off the table. That's why the president of Harvard won't be let go. What will happen will be, what they'll do is, I can't take credit for this. I forget who I saw tweet this today. And this is absolutely what will happen. Months from now, they'll say, oh, she's resigning to work on her scholarship work. That's what they'll do months from now. But they can't say, because it's a sacred cow, they can't say, yes, this woman plagiarized and according to our own rules, we have to let her go. They can't say that. They don't give a shit. The rules don't apply to them. A good third of the country right now, people you've seen me debate, almost every left-winger you've seen me debate right now, tonight, is celebrating like, great, Trump shouldn't be allowed to be on the ballot. Not just in Colorado. They would say that the 14th Amendment means Trump shouldn't be allowed to be on the ballot in any state. Period. End of story. They truly believe it. And it's not just that they believe it because they're like, oh, because the law says this and the technicalities of what happened. They believe it because they're like, Orange Man bad. That's it. That's literally the only thought process they need to put into it. And then they could derive their conclusions and their excuses from that position. Trump's bad, shouldn't be on the ballot. I think Joe Biden's real bad. I think he's terrible. I think he likely weaponized his position as vice president to enrich his family with hostile foreign powers. If ever there was a reason to not want someone in office. It would be absurd if a red state, like if Kansas came out tomorrow and said, yeah, we think that Hunter Biden worked with the spy chief of China, and Joe Biden helped him do that, and therefore that's helping people that are enemies of the United States, so according to the 14th Amendment, Joe Biden can't be on the ballot in Kansas. I would be like, it's nonsense. That's nonsense. I wouldn't cheer that on, and I don't like Joe Biden. But the left doesn't give a shit. You see, while we sit here and infight and argue like, should Trump influencers say this? And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of asshole Trump influencers, as we'll probably get to tonight. Should DeSantis influencers say this? Well, should Trump be attacking Chip Roy? Should blah, blah, blah. Fuck Trump. Fuck DeSantis. Fuck Chip Roy. All of them, and no one's perfect, and they're more talented than me. All that whole batch be Thomas Massey. But what have they done to stop this corruption? What did Trump do? What has DeSantis said he's going to do? Well, we'll fire a few people and we'll move the FBI office out of Washington. If you don't make serious moves to end this corruption, it will become more and more entrenched and desperate and flagrant. Let's read the 14th Amendment, shall we? Now, full disclosure, I have not read the entire court decision. I learned about it 5 minutes before I came on. My understanding is it's over 100 pages, so I'm not going to sit here and bullshit you and tell you that I've read it. But I am aware that it was Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, because I read about this argument previously when it was brought up. This will probably be overturned by the Supreme... Before we get to the 14th Amendment. So, what's the plan here? Does Colorado legitimately think... Now, my understanding is that if the Supreme Court weighs in, if they agree to hear the case, then the Colorado court said, well, then we'll withhold stopping Trump's name from being on... In other words, if the Supreme Court would come out tomorrow and say, we're going to hear this case, this decision says, okay, well then Trump's still allowed on the ballot pending the outcome of the Supreme Court case. So that's what's going on. It is designed to give the media talking points, and it's designed to hopefully encourage some sort of radical Trump supporter to do something stupid. And I don't normally talk like this. I'm just going to straight up say this, though. I'm just going to say this. And people that follow me know that I don't normally talk like this. I would not be surprised if right now there aren't FBI agents in communities, right-wing communities, right now, trying to facilitate some Trump supporter to do something stupid, just like they did with the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping case. They need to manufacture this. Just like they needed January 6th, so that they could shut down any criticism of the 2020 election, and then further than that, any criticism of COVID reaction and stuff like that. Ban it from social media and things like that. Unquestioned. Oh, it's an insurrection. Don't ask questions. That's the end of it. Thanks, Tony Blabetto. Tells me to shut up, fatty. LOL. Thanks so much for the kind words. I am trying to lose weight. You're an inspiration. Thanks so much. But I won't shut up. Now, that doesn't mean if some radical Trump person does something stupid, some radical Trump supporter, that the FBI necessarily encouraged them. But that's the outcome they want. That's what this is about. It probably will be overturned by the Supreme Court because it's laughable, though there's at least 2 to 3 justices that will vote. If it means kicking Trump off, they'll do whatever. But Now do you understand why they want to pack the Supreme Court? You understand that as well? They already know in all of these activist lower courts, so many of them, that they have judges that just don't give a shit. They have judges, prosecutors and judges like, what's his name, Energon and Letitia James there. Yeah, fuck you, Trump. Who cares if the banks themselves say you didn't overvalue your property and they admit that they knew exactly what the value was. They did their own estimation and they were fine with it and they made money. Who gives a shit? Guilty. Who gives a shit? Trump going down. You're going to drink my tears. Cool. Looks like I'm crying. So the last bastion is the Supreme Court. If they could get that, if they could just pack it with like 10 more Trump haters, then they're made in the shade. They'd just be like, yeah, Trump's not allowed on the ballot. Then what? What if that would happen? What if this Supreme Court right now is like, yeah, we agree, Trump's not allowed on the ballot? What do you think happens? Probably, I'm guessing, let's be as conservative as possible, right? So 70 million something people voted for Trump in 2020. Let's say half of them are pissed at him. So now it's only 35 million Trump supporters. And you're going to say, by the way, your guy hasn't been charged with sedition or insurrection. And there hasn't even been a court case yet. He hasn't even had a chance to defend himself from the charges that he did receive. But nonetheless, we are arbitrarily saying, yes, without the ability to defend himself, we declare him guilty of helping people that committed insurrection or committing an insurrection. And therefore, the candidate that you wanted to vote for is not allowed on the ballot. And we're doing it for democracy. What would happen? Todd, would you like to call in? I'll give you my Google Voice number and you could call in. And you could tell me how Trump took action to overthrow a free and fair election. Would you like to call in? Now, you see what I mean? He'll say, well, the fake electors. No, Trump legitimately thought the election was stolen. There were a lot of shady things that were worth looking into. We're still looking into some of those things in Georgia. The Democrats themselves have questioned the legitimacy of elections in the past. They have themselves put alternate slates of electors, sometimes successfully, like I think the election of JFK in Hawaii, they did that. None of them ever once was it suggested they would be kept off a ballot. Never once. Never once was there a massive investigation going through their emails and subpoenaing people. And never once. But what would happen? Where's Todd? Hey, Todd, calling in, buddy? I'm trying to avoid using Discord, by the way, if at all possible. Doing the Google Voice thing because I feel like Discord runs my CPU up a lot. So hopefully Google Voice does less. Again, if my computer crashes, if the stream randomly stops, remember, go to Twitch. If you're watching in some other platform, my computer's been overheating, so. Todd, I asked if you wanted to call in. You haven't responded. You could say, no, I don't want to call in. You could say that. And then we can move on with the show. But you seem to have strong opinions on this. What if I told you Democrats actually took action before in voting for alternate slates of electors? They actually voted for that. Should they be charged with insurrection? We'll give Todd another minute to respond here and then we'll move on. But what would happen if the Supreme Court, theoretically, now it won't. I'm 98% sure the Supreme Court's going to be like, yeah, this is garbage. And then, by the way, the same people that are like, you have to trust law, you have to trust the courts and blah, 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 they'll say, that's ridiculous. What about that time Clarence Thomas went in that trip? He shouldn't be allowed to vote in this. Coincidentally, when Ruth Bader Ginsburg was literally publicly disparaging Donald Trump, you know all the talking points situations aren't comparative. See ya. Could have said, no, I don't want to call in, so. He had his chance. He could have said, no, I don't want to call in. That would have been fine. But he's just wasting time, as they all do. So I don't have to look to him anymore. It's the same argument as always with these people. Okay, well, what is it exactly that Trump did that means that he should go to prison for insurrection and that he should not be allowed on ballots? This situation, this right here, this is what Trump did. Okay, so like the alternate electors, here's Democrats. So, no, not that. This unique Trump situation. Right, that's what we're saying. What uniquely about it? Everything about this situation, that's it. That's the situation. It's the same. Why did we need to get FISA warrants to spy on Trump's campaign? Because of this situation. Right, so you're saying what? That his team was accused of communicating and colluding with hostile Russian agents? Yeah, okay, well here's the Democratic Party doing that. Here's Hillary's team doing that. No. That's different. That situation's different. Hashtag that's different. Why should Trump be charged with obstructing justice and things like that? Because of this situation right here. He didn't apply the subpoena, he was trying to hide evidence. Like Hillary's team destroyed subpoenaed evidence? No, that's different. I know all the talking points, it's different. Oh, EO, dude. Here, I'll take care of that. Sorry, I just blocked him on Restream. Sorry for my Kick audience. My bad. There we go. Again, I say, if my computer crashes, if the stream randomly crashes, remember, go to Twitch, and I'll keep streaming on my phone. So now we will try to... Because he continued until the only ally he had was Mike Lindell. Oh, yeah, I read that in the Constitution. What is that? That's the addendum, right? The Founding Fathers. Was that in, like, the Bill of Rights? Addendum to the 10th Amendment. By the way, if Mike Lindell becomes your only friend, then you're not allowed to be on the ballot. Right? I remember reading that. Right? Isn't that what it said? Let's read the 14th Amendment, Section 3, that they're talking about. Maybe. It starts here. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or any state who, having previously taken an oath of office, so someone who's been in office before, as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or an member of any state legislature or an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may by a 2/3 vote in each house. So, if you've previously been in office and you've engaged in insurrection and rebellion against the Constitution, right? So if you've gone against Congress, any of the institutions you are, or the Constitution, and you had insurrection or rebellion against them, or gave aid or comfort to the enemies thereof, you can't be on the ballot. Joe Biden aided the Taliban. He can't be on the ballot. They're our enemies. Oh, look, the guy came back with a new account. Nice. Good stuff. Hey, EOD. How would you like to be... Oops. Watch Tubby try to censor again. Yeah, watch. Boom. Easy. One second. I want to see if I can make someone a mod. I don't know how. Oh well. Now watch this original dude come up with another account and come on. Hey man, why is this guy banning me for just coming on and calling him a fat fuck? What's up with that, man? That's censorship. We get it. I do wish I knew how to mod someone though. Anyways, we'll just ban them from the restream chat when they come back. Don't care. So according to that, if you can accuse someone of engaging in rebellion or insurrection against our government, or you have aided people that have done so, you're not allowed on the ballot. Okay. Well, I think that 95% of our elected officials in Washington have gone against the Constitution, therefore they shouldn't be allowed on the ballot. So if I get on the Supreme Court or become an attorney general or something of a state, I will say no one's allowed on the ballot. These people aren't allowed on the ballot because they've already been in office, so they're incumbents of some sort, or they were in office previously. And I feel that they pushed for things that were anti-constitutional. I feel they pushed for things that were pro-China. And Heady Tomato then goes, Heady Tomato, would you like to call in? I see that the being friends with Mike Lindell should keep you off the ballot argument is strong with you. So would you like to call in and you could discuss that, how being friends with Mike Lindell should keep you off the ballot? The 25th Amendment says that you're not competent, unlike Joe Biden, who doesn't know where he's at and shitting his pants and sniffing little girls' hair all the time. I wonder if you called for him to be off the ballot as well. I'm just curious. Would you like to call in, though? We'd have a serious debate about there should be an amendment. There should be an amendment that says if you're friends with Mike Lindell, you shouldn't be on the ballot. Sound good? It's another one of these people. No, you're not calling in. Okay, fair enough. It's another one of these people that say, oh yeah, I agree, Biden shouldn't be on the ballot as well. But I'm perfectly fine with the FBI, the Democratic Party, all these courts, etc., keeping Trump off and not Biden. But I'd be okay with Biden too. Right. The point is, it's not about Biden or Trump. It's about these institutions that are engaging in two-tiered system that are intentionally trying to interfere in our democracy. That's the problem. You just said, I agree about... Okay. I didn't say that. So here's another thing that I find to be a pet peeve, right? So imagine that. Imagine that, like this guy, Me Gutsy, that calls in last week. After some pulling of teeth and stuff, he says, I totally agree that the FBI set up January 6th, and they intentionally allowed an insurrection to occur that they thought credibly could overthrow the government, could literally take down our government. But the FBI allowed it because they wanted to try to swoop in at the last minute to get fame and glory for themselves. Knowing that they could have failed, but that was the goal. And then it's like, okay, well then that's like a huge issue, right? Like that's the biggest issue. Now, I'm more upset that they moved some ballot boxes from some college campuses. To me, that's a bigger issue. So this guy comes in, he's like, oh, Mike Lindell's reason enough to keep Trump off the ballot. I agree with this. Trump shouldn't be on the ballot because Mike Lindell. And it's like, right, so they're kicking him off, but not Trump. But not Biden. And you're like, yeah, kick Biden off too. It's like, oh, okay. So then you're fine with them being selective? No, I didn't say that. But instead of coming in and saying, I believe that both Trump and Biden should be kicked out, and I can't believe the hubris of these institutions that are only kicking one off, clearly for political reasons. That's a threat to democracy worse than having an incompetent person like Biden or Trump being there. Instead of saying that, you're like, oh, no, that's what I really meant. I just didn't lead with that. I led with the My Pillow Mike Lindell things. Yeah, we believe you, Tomato. Thanks so much, though. So then Jonathan Turley in the article I read is like, well, where does this stop then? Now, keep in mind, Trump wasn't charged with rebellion. He wasn't charged with insurrection. He hasn't faced a court case yet and had an ability to defend himself. The argument is, if a court arbitrarily, without having our entire system set up that you're innocent until proven guilty, you don't get a chance to defend yourself. If a court arbitrarily says, this meets our definition of rebellion or insurrection, that's it. They're allowed to say, therefore you're not allowed on the ballot. And Jonathan Turley brings up a good point, like, well, what exactly made what Trump did rebellion or insurrection? If January 6th never happens, but he still wants to have alternate electors and it doesn't come through, is that rebellion or insurrection? If Trump speaks up an hour earlier and says, hey, stop this, does that mean he didn't support rebellion or an insurrection? No, it doesn't say convicted. We just looked at it. Let me reread just to be clear. Again, no person shall be a senator, representative in Congress, or elector of the president or vice president, or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or any other state, who having previously taken oath of office as a member of Congress, or as an officer of the United States, or a member of any state legislature, or as an executive or judicial officer of any state, to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. So no, it says not. It does not use the language of convicted. Section 4. Right. Sometimes I follow the chat too much. Right. So it wasn't convicted. Yeah. Right. How can they have him at the ballot if he's not been found guilty? Because they don't give a shit. They don't care. In their minds, he's guilty. He doesn't have the right. Just like the summary judgment, just like the Alex Jones shit, just like the Letitia James case, it's just guilty until proven innocent now. It's that simple. You're guilty. That's why they're okay with the FISA warrants. By the way, Republicans just renewed the NDAA that allows FISA applications. They're allowed to spy on you, to claim that you're a foreign spy. You don't get to defend yourself. You don't even know that they're spying on you. Perfectly fine. Even though they've weaponized it. Even though they illegally spied on the President of the United States' team. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. It's okay. David says, the decision will be overturned, guarantee. I would say there's a 98% chance that the decision will be overturned. But that's not the point. Do you realize how close we are to complete and utter authoritarianism in this country? What if Trump didn't get to appoint Gorsuch? What if it was still a 5-4 Democrat to Republican Supreme Court? Then what? That's it? Only through serendipity, it's like, well, thank God. Because I'll guarantee you there would be violence. If the Supreme Court, which I'm totally against, completely against, I'm not calling for violence. I think it would be despicable. You would see me on here telling people, don't do it. Stupid. But I just know, at that point, if the Supreme Court says Donald Trump cannot be on the ballot, he's not been charged with insurrection, he's not been convicted of insurrection, he's not even had a day in court to defend himself from the charges that come, it doesn't matter. We are on our own saying he's not allowed on the ballots. No, the Supreme Court shouldn't defer to state courts on this, right? Because it is for an elected office to the country, the federal government. So you shouldn't defer and say, well, states are allowed to determine how they're... Like, for example, states shouldn't be allowed to say illegal immigrants can vote for president in our state. They shouldn't be allowed to say that because that affects every state. So it can't defer to the states. Abortion's different. Abortion's talking about personal rights. And the 10th Amendment says if it's not specifically outlined in the Constitution, then it goes to the states. So it's completely different. That's where we're at. And I assure you, I would guess. My guess is, and someone could correct me if I'm wrong. My guess is I will be hard pressed to find any elected Democrat, other than maybe some small local township people, maybe a few state level people, but any national level Democrat, any mainstream media person that leans left, I would be any influencer or commentator that you see on Twitch or YouTube or whatever that leans left. I think you'd be hard pressed to find one that's like, this is really bad. hard-pressed to find a self-identifying Democrat in one of those positions and say, this is bad. They're all cheering it. Take the idea of Trump being removed from the ballot out of it. Do you think that these same people cheering this on would give two shits if you were locked up because you didn't take the vaccine? Do you think they would care? Do you think at all? Maybe you would have a handful more people. That's literally. Do you understand why I talk about the corruption of these institutions? Because at this point, the culture. This is why corruption in these institutions is so important to fight back against. Because literally, it is this point the only bulwark against sort of a tyranny of democracy or a tyranny of the popularity. We are fast approaching a time that says if the cultural landscape makes a declaration, that's it. It doesn't matter what the law says at this point. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the rules say. Well, the law says that you can't discriminate against people based on race. Fuck that. We're going to give money to black farmers. Fuck the white farmers. We don't care. What are you going to do? Law says, the Supreme Court said you can't just refund people's student loan money. Fuck that. Law says you have to keep, enforce illegal or immigration laws. Fuck that. No, we don't. Tyranny of the majority. That's what I was looking for. The only thing preventing that is the Constitution, the things outlined there, and our institutions. That's it. COVID showed you how quick they'll turn on you. They said without evidence that if you didn't take the vaccine, remember, 30%, I think it was around 30% of Democrats said you should have your children taken away from you. 50% said you shouldn't be allowed out in public with no evidence. In fact, the evidence was strongly suggesting to the contrary, that the vaccines didn't prevent transmission. The argument was the vaccines prevented serious cases of COVID. Okay, then if you're vaccinated and I'm not, then I'll get a serious case of COVID and you won't. My mistake. Find the article on what? That poll? I don't know where it's at. I can't find it, so I'm just going to have to move on. I apologize, that shit annoys me. But, yeah. Yeah, they were just like, a good portion of them said you should be jailed or interred if you didn't have the vaccine. 30% said they should strip your poll away. Look one more time. I know I've bookmarked this, but it's on my computer at home. My computer's overheating just looking for a damn poll. Here. I think I found it. I thought it was a YouGov poll, though, but... Let's look at this one real quick. While many voters have become skeptical towards the federal government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, majority of Democrats embrace restrictive policies, including punitive measures against those who haven't got the COVID vaccine. This is January 2022. A new Heartland Institute Rasmussen National Telephone Online survey finds that 48% of voters favor Biden's plan to impose a COVID vaccine mandate on the employees of large companies. That includes 33% who strongly favor the mandate. 48% are opposed to the mandate, including 40% who strongly oppose. Voters are similarly divided over the federal government's top COVID expert, Fauci, whatever. The even split amongst voters is the result of a deep partisan divide. 78% of Democratic voters support the Biden administration's COVID vaccine mandate plan, only 22% of Republicans. And many Democrats would support harsher measures, including fines for Americans who won't get COVID-19 vaccine and criminal punishment. After 2 excruciating long years, likely voters begin to question the government, blah, blah, blah. Moreover, half of likely voters oppose the mandate, blah, blah, blah. The survey of 1,016 likely voters on January 5th, 2022. Survey found 75% of likely Democrats, but only 21% of Republicans, 38 unaffiliated, have a favor of polling of Fauci. 58% of voters would oppose federal or state governments to fine Americans who don't get the vaccine. However, 55% of Democrats support that plan to fine you if you don't get the vaccine. 59% of Democratic voters would favor a government policy requiring citizens to remain confined in their homes at all times, except for emergencies if you didn't get the vaccine. 59% of Democrats said you should not be allowed to leave your home if you don't have the vaccine. 48% of Democrats think federal and state government should be able to fine or imprison individuals who publicly questioned the efficacy of the existing COVID-19 vaccines on social media. So half of Democrats think that you should be imprisoned if you criticize vaccines on social media. 45% of Democrats would favor governments requiring citizens to temporarily live in designated facilities or location if they refuse to get the vaccine. 2/3 of likely voters would be against governments using digital devices. 47% of Democrats are for digital devices tracking. How far are Democrats willing to go in punishing the unvaccinated? 29% of Democratic voters would support temporarily removing parents' custodies of their children if they refuse to take the vaccine. If that many people, we're not, and look, maybe that number's off. Maybe you shouldn't trust any one poll. There's another poll, a YouGov poll, that has basically the same argument. Right? But there is no doubt millions of people in this country that would be willing to say, if you do not do the things we want, you shouldn't be allowed to have children. We will take your children. We will force you to go to a detention center. That's it. With no knowledge. These people supporting it, they couldn't tell you, well, I've looked heavily into the science, and here's the evidence I see that the vaccine's important, and blah, blah, blah. They didn't know shit about that. They didn't know. Theoretically, the only thing stopping, like back in the day, it would be something like this. Like this was the argument you used to get back in the day. What if 51% of the people say, we want the other 49% shit? What if they vote for that? If we have a pure democracy, a tyranny of the majority, right? And 51% of the people, we'll just say, like, people that live in the North decide, it's 51% of the population, and every one of them vote and say, we're going to take everyone who lives in the South shit. They don't own homes, they don't own cars, nothing. We take it all. What's to stop that? Well, we have a constitution. We have a Bill of Rights. We have rule of law. And implicit in there is you have agents, judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys, that are interested in upholding that. And when it gets so bad that they're like, we just accuse someone of supporting insurrection rebellion, no evidence needed, no need to allow them to defend themselves. We just say, yep, we have determined that you have done that, and you are not allowed on the ballot. What's the next step? I guess then, if they pack the courts, and the courts say, yes, we are taking children from people that haven't taken the new booster shot. What's your recourse? I'll speak up vocally about that. Oh, we got a law for that too. See, it turns out that you should be fined or arrested for speaking out against it. And we'll encourage social media companies to censor you as well. Oh, now you're getting more upset? You think you're going to defend yourself from us taking your child? Well, now look at what an extremist you are. And again, you might be saying, this is hyperbolic. Show me the influencer. Show me the Democratic media person. Show me the Democratic politician. Show me the person I've debated, the left-wing person I've debated. Show me them saying, this is outrageous. What are you doing? This is a terrible precedent. Show it. They may exist. But overwhelmingly that's not the case. Why? Orange man bad. That's it. It's literally that. These people have bought the narrative that Trump is what they are. Or Trump will be what they are. And they can't accept that. Trump's a dangerous authoritarian. So we must become authoritarians to stop him. And to stop his supporters. I was arguing with Pisco today. He says, oh my God, Trump is an authority. Trump said in a speech the other day that he would be vindictive and go after his opponent. So, man, that authority, we're so close. If he would win, it would be terrible for the country. What would he do? Pay some Russian for opposition research and then send that research to FBI agents that want an insurance policy against his opponents that would use it for a never-ending investigation to spy on his opponent? Through a 4-year investigation that at the end when we found out that it was all bullshit would say, hey, but they subpoenaed everyone surrounding Joe Biden or whoever his opponent would be, Gavin Newsom, and they found out his lawyers committed crime and the one guy that was on his team committed some crime. Look, there were crimes found guilty, so show me the person, I'll show you the crime. Boy, that'd be terrible if he did that. Or what if he used his position to force the firing of prosecutors that were looking into his son's businesses? My God, that would be terrible. Can you imagine? What if he had his executive agencies that he was in charge of, what if they, working on the behest of him, decided that they were going to pressure social media companies to censor people that were critical of him or his policies? That would be terrible. Holy shit, Lindsay wants to throw people in jail. Wow, he does, like they're doing to Trump. They support the actual action. Like, think of how absurd this is. My God, wouldn't it be bad if, hypothetically, Trump did something? And it's like, but you're aware that that shit's happening right now by the people you support to Trump and people that support Trump. And they're like, no, that shit's legitimate. That shit's legitimate. But can you imagine Trump doing it? That would be terrible. What did he do already? Explain to me what Trump did. Trump was in office for 4 years. Show me him locking up his political opposition. Show me the FBI working as his wingmen. Show me them getting FISA warrants to spy on his opponents. Go ahead, show me. Show me what he did. There is an order to remove Trump from the ballot in Colorado. He was removed from the ballot in Colorado under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, saying that he supported rebellion or insurrection, and therefore he is not eligible to be on the ballot. He's convicted of cheating taxes in New York. I can't tell if you're being serious or not, so I'm just not going to respond to you, Porcupine. Right, what do you... So wait, so just to be clear, maybe you're talking to someone else, I don't know. This is what it seems to be from this conversation that we're having here, right? I'm saying... People are saying if Trump comes in office, he'll utilize the FBI and these institutions to go after his opponents. But that's literally what's occurring right now with the Biden administration. You're like, but Trump's already done something. What has he done? He scammed people on his taxes. What does that have anything to do? Is there any law that says if someone... First off, I don't give a fuck what a bunch of activist courts in New York that literally had prosecutors that were running on the promise of taking down Donald Trump say. I don't give a shit that he's convicted. The law doesn't say if you're convicted, you can't run for president. Don't give a shit. Show me in the law where it says that. Irrelevant, right? But Hillary's team was convicted of campaign finance, failure to disclose campaign finance things. The DNC was convicted. Don't give a shit that it says in get. Okay, Porcupine, here's the deal. Porcupine, would you like to call in? Would you like to call in, Porcupine? You seem to have strong opinions on this, so we'll put the number out. Surely you have access to a computer, you have access to a phone. So would you like to call in? Okay. Would you like to call in, Porcupine? I'm not going to use Discord. I'll use the Google Voice. Discord will overheat my computer mostly. Maybe not. Porcupine, would you like to call in? We'll give you a minute to respond to that question. Omar, I'm not interested in talking to you. Right. Last chance, Porcupine. You can say, no, I don't want to call in, and we can move on. But if you don't want to say that, if you want to just keep rambling on and on, then no, Omar. I'm sorry you've lost your... Omar, I have no interest in talking to you. For those that don't know, my friend Omar here seems like a decent fellow. But if you like, I could give you the cliff notes of Omar, since I've talked to him multiple times. I could give you the cliff notes of what the conversation like that would be, right? Well, Trump insurrection, Trump orange man insurrection, and it is an insurrection. Right, but we're talking about sort of double standards that comes at these institutions. For example, the alleged crime that Trump obstructed justice and things like that. We actually see Hillary's team that literally deleted subpoenaed evidence, which is a clear-cut case of obstruction of justice. Yet the FBI decided not to charge anyone with that. Oh, there's an orange man, Trump, he's bad. He's really an insurrection, a January 6th insurrection, and Trump, he's bad. He's really bad. Trump's really bad at insurrection. Right, I understand you keep repeating that. Let's talk specifically then about like what an insurrection is then. Like Trump didn't tell them to engage in violence or anything like that. Clearly wasn't a serious attempt at an insurrection. They didn't have firearms or anything like that. Might have been a handful of people that had them, but it clearly wasn't like just because they got in the building that they would somehow be able to overthrow the government or something like that. This is clearly blown out. But if we're going to say that people attacking our institutions with violent weapons and things like that is in effect an insurrection, well, we could see on May 31st, 2020, for example, a bunch of violent left-wingers actually used lethal weapons attempting to get into the White House to physically remove Donald Trump. And not only were they supported by many Democrats, they actually made fun of Trump because Secret Service had to, oh, but the orange man bad in insurrection, it was the orange man, the insurrection, and there was an insurrection, the orange man. He had an insurrection, and had an insurrection with the orange man, and he's bad, and he's orange. And I don't understand, Rob keeps talking about the orange man, and he's bad, and insurrection. Insurrection, and the old man, the orange man, is bad, it's insurrection, and something like that. There you go. Conversation with Omar over. There you go, everyone. Saved you some time. Porcupine, did you ever answer if you were going to call in or not? Let's see. Porcupine, last chance calling in. If you don't answer yes or no, then you're banned. Because I'm not going to waste my time waiting for you to possibly call in. Just say no and we'll move on. Last chance. If the next comment you make isn't yes, I'm calling in or no, I'm not calling in, then you're banned. So it's that simple. 1 second. I'll be right back, everyone. Sorry. So, Omar, unfortunately, you're not gonna call in, and if you ask to call in again, let me ask the audience that's been here: has the audience seen me have 4 or 5 conversations with Omar that literally go the same direction every time, literally? And I understand, Omar, what I believe would happen. This is just my opinion, so don't say I'm defaming you or anything. It looks like what happened was Omar bought a YouTube channel that had a bunch of followers in an attempt to sort of chase clout. And I understand he's desperate after burning bridges because, unfortunately, although Omar does seem like a nice guy, he is not intelligent. He is not. He is not equipped to handle conversations with any nuance whatsoever. It's literally irrelevant to talk to him because you'll get into the nitty gritty. You'll say, well, my concern is the double standards of these institutions are going on. And he'll just say, but Orange Man bad. Right? I mean, Orange Man bad. And I'll say, Omar, I don't think you're getting it. Right? What I'm saying is that the bigger problem is the institution, right? That's literally every time. And unfortunately, the last time I told him, I said, Omar, I'm so sorry. It's not that I'm afraid of you. It's not that I don't wish you well. I do. You seem like a nice guy. I think you have some ridiculous political inclinations, but you seem like a nice guy. You literally are a drain on me as a streamer because it is literally like talking to a wall. You are just an NPC. That is all you are. And people could search on Rumble and Odyssey and maybe still on YouTube. And you could look up my previous debates with Omar and come to your own conclusion. And you could go check out Omar's channel that he paid for with all that I'm assuming, I'm guessing, I could be wrong. But, and this is what Omar does. He goes to channels like me and he goes to like the Crucible and Andrew Wilson. And he goes in the chat and begs and begs and begs and begs to come on. And then when someone generously lets him come on, you realize within 2 minutes, like, this is a huge mistake. This guy's just eating time. And unfortunately, even without bringing him on, it's eating time because I'm still talking about him. So, Omar, welcome to stay and talk in the chat. Absolutely, you're welcome to do it. I'm not going to facilitate your clout-chasing behavior, even with someone as small of a streamer as me. Even with that, I'm not going to facilitate it. More than welcome to stay and talk in the chat. I'll respond if I think you say something interesting that warrants some sort of response. I will never have you on the channel, just to be clear, unless it's like something amazing happens. Like if you want to come on the channel and say, "Hey, I got married. I feel really great." You can come on and talk about that at some point. If we have a slow day and we're not talking anything, I have zero interest in your opinions politically or culturally. You have burned that bridge because you're literally incapable of having any discussion other than whatever you say. It doesn't matter because Orange Man bad. Have I made myself clear, Omar? Now, I know that you'll disappear for a month or two and then you'll come on, and what you'll do is you'll come in the chat and you'll say, I agree with you on this, Rob. I'd love to have a conversation. And my response to you will be the same. Omar, there's literally nothing you could say that would be worth my time or anyone else's in the chat. That's it. Was this Omar or someone else? Let's see. So I hope we cleared it up. And I don't want you... No, that's
not than just the FBI or
of course.
Whatever the fuck it was. But I mean, what is your answer?
I don't want you to waste your time either. It's not going to happen, dude. Wish you well. Absolutely do. Yeah, that's weird, Bull Moose. That's crazy. Thank you though for attempting. All right. So that's where we're at. Now let's see if my computer won't crash. I saw Viva had a video up about this, so let's watch that. But again, I don't know. I'm seriously doubting that Viva read the entire opinion with this video that was put up an hour ago, but we'll see.
I did a vlog today. Let me just make sure I'm looking at the right camera. It's right there. All right, I did a vlog today. I'm not going to do another highly edited vlog. This is going to be a walkie.
By the way, this is Viva Frei. He's a lawyer. I think he's fantastic. He's a fantastic follow, and he's someone who seems to point out the corruption in these institutions quite frequently, so we'll see what he says.
Talky, speaky vlog, and as I'm doing it, I just saw... Oh, that dog. Hold on 1 second.
I, too, have been having dog problems, and we'll speed this up a little.
As I'm doing it, as I'm sitting down to do this, I got the text message from Robert Barnes. I'm looking for the wrong camera. This is the camera. I got the text message from Robert Barnes stating that I am right in my assessment of the Colorado Supreme Court ruling that just came down a moment ago that is rocking the interwebs, people. It's like, it's shocking. It's shocking.
What did he do? He does kind of a Weird Al vibe. It's the hair.
To the world. His breath just smelled like dog food. All right, so the Colorado Supreme Court just came down with a split decision 4-3 ruling that Trump shall be declared ineligible from being on the primary ballot in the state. It's a 213-page decision, so I'm not pretending to have read it in the 1 hour that...
Okay, I was right. I said it was over 100 pages. I knew it was big, but I was right that Viva hasn't read the whole thing yet either. And so, yeah.
That has transpired since it came down. Baffle them with bullshit. I'm sorry to swear. I'm going to do it right now. I'm not editing this crap. Baffle them with bullshit. If you can't win them with reason, baffle them with bullshit. I started reading the decision. It's a whole lot of bullshit, I'll tell you that much. But the media is going crazy. Social media is going crazy. People are like, on their wits' end. They're at their wits' end. And that's by design. This decision is a steaming pile of judicial dog crap. No insult to you, sir. It's a steaming pile of judicial dog crap. I've read through enough of it to know, but I have not read through all of it to state it definitively. I'm just going to cite the part where I was like, the dog needs to leave the room now.
This is probably more interesting than the political takes. And again, without being a lawyer and without looking into this, all I need to know is this. What this law says, and we'll see if he says this. This is all I've seen. What this law says is that basically judges, without you having the ability to defend yourself, to provide a defense, without you being found guilty of rebellion or insurrection or anything like that, could arbitrarily say, we feel you've engaged in that, and therefore you're not allowed on the ballot in our state. And any state would be able to do that. And it doesn't seem that there would be a limiting principle on that. As long as they felt that you met the threshold of engaging in or supporting rebellion or insurrection, they would be allowed to say that's what it was. So, for example, if you feel that Trump engaged in rebellion or insurrection and you supported Trump, does that mean you as a politician also aren't allowed on the ballot? So if you're a Republican in Colorado, if you supported Trump, who supported rebellion and insurrection, does that mean you supported rebellion and insurrection? If you questioned election results, did you support rebellion and insurrection? Or let me explain to maybe some of my left-wing people that are watching. You support Palestine? But they're our enemies. That's like supporting Hamas. That's calls for genocide. Hamas is our enemy. That's supporting rebellion or insurrection. You question the Iraq war? Well, that's rebellious. You see where this could go? Anyways, let's Viva Frei is better taking
the section that definitively confirmed, in my view, that this is horseshit. This is a political move to...
Do I think that they'll ban Trump in PA, Michigan, Wisconsin? They will certainly try. They will say this is precedent, and they'll certainly try. Now, I think the Supreme Court will rule quite quickly that this isn't going to fly, right? But certainly if the Supreme Court said, sure, then absolutely Michigan, Wisconsin, any place that has a Democratic governor or a Democratic attorney general would certainly do this, or a Democrat court. And as you all know, Pennsylvania, for example, I believe it's 5-2, our Supreme Court, Democrat to Republican. They're an activist court. They absolutely would vote to remove Trump from the ballot in a swing state. They would, and if that held up legally, it would literally ensure a victory for the Democrats. Literally. Without one vote being cast, would ensure it. And they're perfectly fine with that.
To try to enrage the general public, at least half of the population, to do something stupid. When you're dealing with 70 million people, just say, let's narrow it down. Let's say 30 million people. And you want to trigger at least one person.
Viva's saying almost the exact same thing I said. That's exactly right. This is to try to trigger someone. So 70 million plus people voted for Trump. Let's say half of those still support Trump. That's 35 million. And if you tell them without ever casting one vote, that person can't be president, you're hoping that one lunatic does something. That's the plan here.
Person to do something stupid so the media can run with it. What do? You issue this bullcrap ruling, knowing the way the media is going to frame it, knowing the way people are going to misunderstand it, and just hope that somebody does something stupid a la January 6th so that the government can come down and do exactly what they did with the January 6ers and more. That's what this is. Because I'm reading it, and I get to the first, not the first paragraph, it's the 9th page. My gosh, my eyes are getting terrible. And it says this. I'm not yet ready for the world to see me without my glasses because my nose gets exponentially
It's a
bigger,
handsome gentleman.
but I can't focus on the screen without doing it. Forgive me, internet. This is when I knew it was bullcrap. We are also cognizant that we travel in uncharted territory. No crap, crossing the Rubicon is uncharted territory. It didn't work out very well for Julius Caesar and others. I hope it's Julius Caesar. And that this case presents several issues of first impression. No shit, Sherlock. You know what those are? You are interfering with elections, Supreme Court of Colorado. Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'll read it without commentary. But for our resolution of the elector's challenge under the election code, the secretary would be required to include President Trump's name on the 2024 presidential primary ballot. Read that again. But for our resolution of the elector's challenge, the person would be required to include Trump's name on the ballot.
So in other words, what they're saying is if we wouldn't have ruled like this legally because Trump met the criteria to be on the ballot, we legally would have to allow him on the ballot. But because we are intervening, now he is not to be on the ballot.
Happens here, though. This is page 8 to 9. Therefore, to maintain the status quo pending any review by the U.S. Supreme Court, here's things I would bet on. Death, taxes, and this decision being challenged to the Supreme Court. We stay our ruling until January 4, in brackets, the day before the Secretary's deadline to certify the content of the presidential primary ballot. What does that mean, people? We're going to issue a load of steaming horse.
This is the part I saw Frei talking about. And what he's saying here is they're basically saying, I think the final day when they put people on the ballot's January 5th for the primary. So the court's saying their decision won't go into effect until January 4th. However, if the Supreme Court agrees to hear the case before that point, then the Colorado court will reserve their implementation. So in other words, if the Supreme Court comes out tomorrow and says, okay, we're going to hear this case, then they would put Trump's name back on the ballot until the Supreme Court tells them, no, you can't. That's what he's saying. Which seems to suggest they know it's shit, and they know it's going to go to the court, but it's achieving what they want, which is to flex that they can control and interfere in elections and to hope that it inspires some Trump supporter to do something stupid so that they could be more authoritarian.
Horse shit of a decision. But we're going to stay our own decision until the day before, the day that the state person needs to know who's going to be on the ballot. But wait, there's more. Not only do we recognize that our decision, majority, 4-3 split decision, is a steaming pile of judicial dog shit, they're going to stay their decision until January 4, 2024, the day before the Secretary's deadline to certify the content of the presidential primary ballot. If review is sought in the...
That is an absolute excellent point, Ian. Right? They want this... Ian, and this is something that I wanted to talk about. So you beat me to the punch. I was burying the lead here. The game plan here isn't just to hope that some Trump supporter does something stupid. The game plan is they probably know the Supreme Court will overrule this. Then if the Democrats win in 2024, their argument's going to be, do you see the Supreme Court's so corrupt, Clarence Thomas is so corrupt, Kavanaugh is so corrupt, that gang rapist, he's so corrupt, that they literally had an insurrectionist run for president. And this proves that that institution's corrupt. And we need to pack the court, or we need to remove certain people. That's exactly what the plan will be. That's exactly what the plan will be. And then if some Trump supporter does something shitty, that further... But see these dangerous insurrectionists? See these violent lunatics that support Trump? Look, he was found guilty by a D.C. trial. Jack Smith's trial found him guilty. And only the Supreme Court kept him on. That's the game plan. That's exactly what they're going to do. That's exactly it. And yet, how many DeSantis fans am I going to be talking to over the next 2 weeks that are going to say, well, if Trump's the nominee, I'm not voting for him? Thereby ensuring Democrat victory that will allow them to radically change the Supreme Court. Then when their boy runs in 2028, they'll say, fuck him, he ain't on the ballot either. Here's some shit we dug up about him. Then what? Then what will the DeSantis people be saying? Oh, Trump supporters, come to our defense. Fuck you, is what Trump supporters... I'll still defend it, but... Do you see the insanity of this? Do you see how fast we're barreling towards out-and-out open tyranny and authoritarianism? Do you see? Now, everyone says every year, this is the most important election. You could name the unprecedented shit that they've done in the past 6 years, and it would blow your mind. You'd have said, no way. No fucking way. They're literally accusing Trump of insurrection without charging with the crime of it. Just saying, yeah, you're insurrectionist. Don't even charge him with the crime. Don't give him a chance to defend himself. Guilty until proven innocent. You're not even allowed to run for office. They're censoring. You can see it over the Twitter file. I've had debates with people. Yes, absolutely. The U.S. government can recommend to social media companies that certain viewpoints not be allowed. Absolutely, they could do that. Really? Yeah, if they use FISA courts to spy on people, so be it. Absolutely, they could subpoena all the records of anyone who liked Trump's tweet. Absolutely. They could subpoena their Twitter. Why not? With a smile on their face. Well, this is all legal. There's safeguards. Again, before any of this happened today, I was arguing with Pisco. Oh my God, if Trump gets in, it'll be authoritarianism. I'm like, look at all this shit that happened. Well, there's safeguards for that stuff, Rob. You see, for example, the FBI, when they illegally spied on Trump, well, unfortunately, they were unable to charge individuals other than Kevin Clinesmith, who received a slap on the wrist. They're unable to charge any individuals for crimes, and that's just the way it goes. Sometimes institutions commit crimes, and we can't charge the individuals with committing those crimes. So what can you do? And those people aren't in office anyways, and we've been assured by the FBI that they've had changes to the program, and so it's all good now. Regrettable. It was regrettable that they spied on the President of the United States for over a year. It's regrettable. But there are safeguards. There's safeguards. Well, what's the safeguards? Well, for example, Chris Wray at the FBI looked into the FBI, and the Inspector General looked, and Durham looked, and no one brought charge. That's the safeguards. That's it. Safeguards. Oh, okay. Well, if Trump decides to come in and spy on his opponents, couldn't we say, well, they'll resolve this in 4 years. There'll be safeguards. Eventually, someone will look in this. There'll be an Inspector General report 4 years from now, right? Safeguard. No, that'd be the end of the country. We can't have that. Trump uses his FBI to get social media to remove people that are critical of him or his policies. There's safeguards. Eventually there'll be a review or something, right? Safeguards. No, that'd be the end of the country. Anyways, but thank you, Ian. That's exactly the point I was going to make. You beat me to it. You should have a show. Let's see what Viva says.
Supreme Court before the stay expires on January 4, 2024. Then the stay shall remain in place until the Secretary will continue... Sorry, what the heck am I looking at? If a review is sought in the Supreme Court before the stay expires on January 4, 2024, then the stay shall remain in place, and the Secretary will continue to be required to include President Trump's name on the 2024 primary ballot until receipt of any order or mandate from the Supreme Court. Let me put my glasses back on because I don't like being naked, and I'm naked without my glasses. I don't like being ugly. I'm not superficial, but I don't like looking ugly. What did we just hear? All right, we've issued this ridiculous bullshit order, 4-3 split decision from the Supreme Court of Colorado, which is the higher court from the state court. They heard it from the state court, and am I wrong, or did they overturn the state court?
I think they overturned
the state court. Doesn't matter. The Supreme Court has issued this split decision, and they say, yes, Trump engaged in inciting the erection. Oh, I'm sorry, no, I was quoting Chuck Schumer. He engaged in insurrection and is therefore disqualified under the 14th Amendment, third article of the United States Constitution. They are so worried about election interference, interruption of democracy, that they've got to interfere with elections and mess with democracy. I was going to say F with democracy, but
That's exactly what I said. That's their argument. And this isn't surprising. We'll go back to Viva here in a minute, but this isn't surprising. One of the issues that I was very vocal about back in like 2016, 2015, around those times, remember when Richard Spencer got punched at a street corner? And then there was this big question, is it okay to punch a Nazi? Is it okay? And the answer is no. Unless that Nazi is directly physically harming you in the moment. No. You can't just physically assault someone because you don't like their political opinions. And basically, if you really boil it down to what their argument was, it's Nazis are oppressors and they would punch me so I could preemptively punch them to stop people from being punched. No, you can't. Fist of Heaven, are you really telling me that your argument is that it's okay to just literally walk up to a Nazi and punch them, even if they haven't said a word to you? You'd bust one in the mouth quick. I think you're a Nazi. Sorry if you get your fucking jaw broke, right? Fuck you. Right? Fuck you, Nazi. I define Nazis as people that say they could arbitrarily punch people because they'll accuse them of Nazis. Therefore, I accuse you a Nazi, and you should get punched in the fucking head. And when you say, but wait, I'm not a Nazi, and the left says, yeah, you are. We think you are. For example, maybe you're against trans people using bathrooms of their non-biological assigned sex. Let them try. Well, thanks so much, Fist of Heaven. I don't really like tough guys that advocate for violence on my channel, both for terms of service reasons and because I just don't fucking like you, so see you later. Appreciate it. Give me 1 second. I'll get you off the Twitch channel as well. Thanks so much for playing, though. Really means a lot. I'd have to sign into Twitch. We'll just leave. If anyone's a mod on Twitch, go ahead and ban Fist of Heaven. Thanks so much for playing. But, do you see? Thanks, Aftershock. Do you see? Yeah, we should punch Nazis, and anyone I disagree with's a Nazi. Fuck them, they're terrible people. Trump's a Nazi, and all of his supporters are Nazis. I told this story the other day when I was on the website Above Top Secret. Literally, there was a person on there that said we should basically commit genocide to anyone that's a Trump supporter because all Trump supporters are Nazi supporters because Trump's a Nazi. That's it. And they believe it. They believe that shit. Like that guy. Fuck yeah, fuck Nazis. What I've always said is we have to agree. Like, again, this is something that was said commonly when I debated, right? The reason that I love debate, the reason I love discussion is because once discussion no longer could happen, then how do you resolve disputes? What do you do? Violence is almost inevitable at that point. Either total balkanization, where you just don't deal with people, or there's going to be violence. There's going to be some sort of conflict resolution. And so, we have to agree on the rules of engagement before we engage in the substantive discussion of the issue we're talking about. And this makes sense if you think about the game of policy debate. There have to be rules to the game, right? You can't just have one person stand up and say, I refuse to allow the other side to speak. I'm just going to speak for 2 hours. Okay, judge, who won? I guess you. The other team didn't say anything. Winner. That's irrelevant. Then the game falls apart. And if you take it outside the context of a game, if you're talking about real discussions on real issues, if one side says, if we think you're a Nazi, not only do we not have to listen to you, but we literally could use physical violence against you. It should be totally legitimate to just use physical violence. And then you say, oh, okay, so we could use physical violence against you? No, you can't do that. That would make you a Nazi. If you want to use violence against me, that means you're a Nazi. But if we want to use violence against you, that means you're a Nazi. See? See how that works? You can't do that. You can't have a system like that. Okay, and Lindsay, let's go down this line of thought, right? Why is it specifically that we don't want Nazis marching in the street? What is it specifically about that? Now, that's anathema to the Constitution and the First Amendment and free speech. But let's say we accept you say, forget about all that shit. We don't want Nazis. Is it because what they recommended to the Jewish people, their anti-Semitism, the violence they committed against Jewish people, and the prescriptions and their attempted genocide of Jewish people? Would you say that's primarily? You're afraid if they get power. Right. So, but why? You're afraid if they get power. Why? Because what they have shown is they have a propensity to want to commit genocide, particularly against Jewish people, but also other groups. Correct? A simple yes, no will suffice. Cool. We should also ban and jail anyone that's pro-Palestine. Right? Anybody who's pro-Palestine, kick off of campus. Anyone that Linda Sarsour and company were just at the Capitol today protesting in, all of them should be imprisoned, right? Correct? They too are prescribing. I've heard many Jewish organizations, including the State of Israel, say they too are prescribing genocide. From the river to the sea is genocidal. So all of those people also should not be allowed to speak. Possibly jail, right? Correct, Lindsay? So for example, the squad, so here we go. So Lindsay right now is calling for the squad to not only not be allowed to speak up for Hamas or Palestine, but to actually have them removed from Congress, I'm assuming, right? Because we don't want Nazis in Congress, correct? Right? So I assume that you've been adamantly calling out the squad, right? Antifa, communism's really bad. It killed more people than the Nazis. So anyone that's a communist should be banned, possibly jailed, right? We don't want communists marching down the street, correct? Oh, what's that? My Christian nationalist friends are saying, well, what about LGBT people that groom people? I remember a debate with Andrew Wilson where he suggested that gay people not be allowed on television. After all, it leads to grooming of children. We need to protect the children, right? So keep all gay people off television, right? What do you mean these situations are a bit exaggerated? What's exaggerated about that? You don't think people are called Nazis all the time by the left that aren't actual Nazis? And then Lindsay says, but I'm not a socialist or communist. Well, as long as I'm not banned, it's okay, he says. That's one of the First Amendment, arguably, the First and Second Amendments intertwine. The right to defend yourself and the right to speak are the two most important things in our Constitution. If you don't have the right to speak, if someone says you literally don't have the right to have certain ideas, then what are we? Anyways, I digress. Let's go back to Viva. Again, do you see the lefties? Do you see them? If you criticize the FBI, right? If they come out tomorrow, if the Democrats come out tomorrow and go, oh, by the way, we found evidence that Elon Musk is actually an anti-Semite and a Nazi, which they're trying to do. That's what they're trying to paint him. Lindsay would say, then he shouldn't be allowed to own X. He shouldn't be allowed to have free speech. We can't have that. Wouldn't matter if they prove it or enough. It'd be enough. The accusation would be enough from a Lindsay. That good enough for us. Ban him. Right, Aftershock, you can see it there. He said, I'm not a communist. Why would I care? Sure. That's it. That's all they care about. Power. That's it. Let's go back to Viva here.
It's a child-friendly program. What did they just say? Oh, yeah, we're declaring Trump ineligible to be on the ballot, but we're staying our own decision until January 4. That's the day before the state court decides, or the state ballot decides who goes on the ballot. And unless Trump petitions the Supreme Court, well, then who knows what happens. But if he petitions the Supreme Court, then our stay will remain in effect until any other further order from the Supreme Court of the United States of America. What do you think is going to happen, people? Oh, no, Trump's not going to challenge that to the Supreme Court. He's going to live with the decision because it's justice, after all. A bunch of rogue justices, rogue, corrupt, partisan hack justices, keeping Trump off the primary ballot. Like fun, they will. Like fun. So what's going to happen? They're going to stay the decision until, hold on, let me just get the date again. I'm going to take my glasses off. They stay it until January 4, the day before the Secretary's deadline to certify the content of the presidential primary ballot. And if Trump appeals it to the Supreme Court, they're going to stay it indefinitely. So that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. And I know that I'm comfortable in my initial assessment, which I posted before Barnes confirmed that I was intelligently accurate with my assessment. What is this? It's an illusory, bullshit, partisan, corrupt hackery of a decision with absolutely no practical consequence. Because the decision that they just issued, they stayed it on their own until January 4th. And if someone petitions this to the Supreme Court, they stay it indefinitely until, and I quoth, one more time, until the receipt of any order or mandate from the Supreme Court, capital Supreme, capital C Court. So they've done nothing except given a headline to the media to run with for the next few months. Like what other court order where I forget what it was. Where like it was from Colorado. That's right. This is all coming together. That judge Wallace, appointed by whatever the governor is, who was supported by George Soros. That judge said, I can't keep him off the ballot, but I do declare that he engaged in insurrection. Bullshit. It's bullshit through and through. I do declare that he engaged in insurrection in a civil court case. coming to criminal conclusions. I declare that he engaged in insurrection, but I can't keep him off the ballot. Well, the Colorado Supreme Court found a way to keep him off the ballot, except they're not keeping him off the ballot because they're staying their own partisan bullshit court order. If they appeal it to the Supreme Court, they'll stay it indefinitely, which they're going to do, which is going to happen, period. What happens in the meantime? Media gets to run with bullshit headlines. I'm sorry, I'm swearing a lot. They get to run with bullshit headlines. If they're lucky, by the way, if they're really lucky, they're going to enrage some random citizen to do something stupid. Don't do it. Don't break the law. Don't do anything stupid. Don't succumb to these forces. This is a psyop. This is a manipulating the general public to try to do something stupid so that Joe Biden, so that the courts can come down and say, look at these people. They're such savages. They respond violently to just judicial court orders. They want someone to do something stupid so they can then take this court order, which they're going to run for headlines, then take a stupid response from someone to run with headlines. And I'll say this right now. Anybody who does anything stupid in response to this court order, Fed poster, Fed actor, Fed, you're a Fed. Because anybody who does it is not working with or for Trump or in Trump's best interest. They're actually working in the interests of the parties that want to trigger this response. If it happens, it's a Fed. Period. Bottom line. But that's what they want to happen. So they get to issue this court order. Media's going to run with the headlines. Trump declared ineligible on the Colorado ballot pending confirmation from the Supreme Court, which will not happen. But people are going to read it and say, Trump's been excluded from the ballot. I want to go crazy. Don't. But they want someone to go crazy. So they can then say, exclude from the ballot. And his violent supporters have engaged in violence because they don't respect democracy. Because the people who want to keep someone off the ballot are going to judge others for not respecting democracy. Okay, and then, by the way, as I'm doing this video, 10 minutes of ranting lunatic. Barnes, and I saw it come up sideways because my phone is sideways, said, you're correct. This is a bogus ruling for bogus headlines to trigger a response so they can then hope that something happens that will allow them to pursue this charade, this game of politics at the expense of the republic of these United States of America. They won't get away with it. They won't get away with it. And it won't happen. And I will not contribute to it because these United States of America are beautiful. The experiment is beautiful and it's not going to be destroyed. The republic is not going to be destroyed by a bunch of partisan, activist hacks of judges. A corrupt media that will run with the story, whip people up into a frenzy and hope that someone does something stupid so they can do even more ridiculous stuff. But that's it. Don't fall for it. It's bullshit. The ruling's bullshit. It stayed pending January 4th. Stayed pending adjudication by the Supreme Court of the United States. So it stayed indefinitely. But they want to trigger people. We are smarter. We are educated, and we will not be so triggered. All right, people. Man, 2 vlogs in one day. Go vivabarneslaw.locals.com if you want more of this amazing insight. And yes, I call it amazing insight. Go forth and prosper. Gross.
He was funny. He's quirky. Good guy. Yeah, I mean, my assessment was very similar to his. I don't know that I share his optimism. I do think this Supreme Court will overturn, but there seems to be this idea of this is a great country. It is. This is a great experiment. It is. We're smart enough to not fall into this. Are we? Now, I haven't seen the quote directly from Vivek, but I saw someone quote Vivek and said, oh, sorry. From Vivek, quote, I pledge to withdraw from the Colorado GOP primary unless Trump is also allowed to be on the state's ballot. And I demand that Ron DeSantis, Chris Christie, and Nikki Haley do the same immediately. That's why Vivek's probably the best candidate. Even if he's full of shit, even if he's just telling us what we want to hear, at least someone is. What do you mean, why would a judge throw away a career like that? What career are they throwing away? Are they going to be removed from office if this is clear bullshit? They'll just say, oh, I had a different interpretation. The Supreme Court overturned it. Never mind. They'll be heroes. Just like Judge Ernagon or whatever in New York. They're heroes. Just like Kevin Clinesmith. Why would Kevin Clinesmith, a top-ranking lawyer at the FBI, intentionally change evidence to the opposite of the truth to get a FISA warrant to spy on Trump's team? That's what he did. He said, CIA, did Carter Page ever work with you to take down Russians? They email him back. Yes, he did. He takes out the word yes and puts in the word no. Why would he do that? He's also putting hashtag resist and stuff like that on Twitter. Why would he do that to throw away his career? Was his career thrown away? No, he was given probation, I think $1,000 fine, and he's already had his license to practice law reinstated. And he's a hero. I'm sure at all the DC cocktail parties, he's a great celebrity. You took down the evil orange man. Thoughts on Alex Jones' case? Yeah, it's similar, right? He wasn't allowed to provide evidence of his defense, right? I don't know exactly what he's accused of saying, but you should be allowed to say something's a conspiracy and you don't believe it happened. That's different than saying someone specifically defaming them by saying they specifically committed a crime. Like if he would have said that dad murdered his own kid, that might be cross the line of libel or defamation, depending if it was in language or writing. But you should be allowed to opine about conspiracy theories. You should be even allowed to opine about things that are heinous. I don't think any kids died. Stupid opinion, but you should be allowed to say it. If you're said that you can't say those things, then the logical next step is, well, these people are saying we didn't find weapons of mass destruction, and that's dangerous. These people are criticizing, allegedly we're going to see people that were on the Epstein flight logs. Well, the precedent's been set, right? If someone says, oh, they were on the flight logs, I think maybe they did something heinous. Sue them for billions of dollars, right? Now, has Desantis said anything? Does anyone have a link? Or Haley? I don't see anything from that DeSantis account. This is the problem I'm having. Now I'm going to dovetail into the other conversation. The idea of influencers and DeSantis versus Trump and Tucker Carlson going on Tim Pool and, all of this stuff. Oh, man, this is the fact that this story, bro. I'm not like, oh, man, like, I'm depressed. I'm, oh, man, like, trying to collect my thoughts would say this, because I had prepared sort of what I was going to say before this came out, and it sort of buttresses what I was talking about. All right, I'll start with this the topic we're on with this. Kudos to Chris Christie for at least saying voters should decide, not courts. I guess kudos to him. He's a piece of shit, but whatever. More than it seems that DeSantis has said so far. So here's the problem. Here's fundamentally the problem I have with Ron DeSantis, who I'll have to reevaluate depending on what DeSantis says here on this issue. I make no bones about it. Anyone who's followed me knows that the issue that I'm primarily concerned with is corruption. You could see, right? You could see why that's the case blatantly today. If the Supreme Court would decide we're not going to overrule this, literally, even if Donald Trump is the preferred candidate for president of the United States by the majority of the people in this country, it will be irrelevant. He will not be allowed to run. Now, I don't think that'll happen, but that's how close we are to completely losing our system, which would trigger violence, insanity, which would lead to a further crackdown, etc. This corruption stuff has been pervasive even before Trump, long time before Trump. And Trump comes along and shines a spotlight on it, not necessarily because he's playing 4D chess, but because he's seen as someone who's not completely controlled by the establishment. And so they don't like the idea that they don't know if they can control him. He might be a potential outsider. And so, as I said, when Trump got elected, it would be a mask-off moment where you would see all of the corruption come to the light. Not because Trump would be there with a light exposing it, but because they wouldn't be able to help themselves. They would say, this is a last-ditch effort. There's the allegation that Hillary said, if he wins, we're all going to hang. I don't know if she said that or not, but that's sort of what I'm talking about. They'd be like, holy shit, if this guy gets in here and sees all the, skeletons in the closet and exposes them, we're fucked. Can't have that. We could have Biden, we could have Obama, we could have Hillary, we could have Bush, we could have Rubio, we could have Christie, but we can't have an outsider. We can't have a Bernie, can't have a Trump, can't have an RFK, can't have a Ron Paul. Thanks, Nico. Sorry I'm giving you nightmares. So that's my big issue. Now, I have never, nor will I ever, defend Trump to someone who personally finds them unlikable. I'm not defending Trump's character. I also find him quite unlikable in many ways. In fact, I had a little text exchange with my friend Aftershock that's in the chat there. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous. Now he's out there attacking Chip Roy. Why? It's simple. It doesn't matter. You could have gone to bat for Trump. You could have personally worked for Donald Trump and did everything right and supported him 100% and gave your whole life for it and refused pay and just did it because you're like, damn it, I support this guy and he's the best. And if you came out and was like, but I think DeSantis is the way to go now, still love Trump, still think he was great, if he wins, I'd still fight for him, but I'm going to go with DeSantis in the primary, he would fucking attack you. That's ludicrous. It's just ludicrous. Especially, and again, I'm saying this, I put a video up on Twitter today, and I made comments on Twitter, especially when there's all of these institutions and people that are literally trying to throw Trump in prison for the rest of his life. But I'm going to attack Chip Roy. Now, is Chip Roy perfect? No. But he's better than most. And he's not being attacked by Trump because it's like, well, I didn't like the fact that he besmirched Ken Paxton, the Attorney General in Texas there. Agreed. Stupid of Chip Roy to have done that. I didn't like the fact that at one point he seemed to defend Liz Cheney. Agreed. Didn't like that. But that's not why Trump's attacking him. If Chip Roy would have came out and said, I endorse Trump, he wouldn't have said shit. He'd been, Chip Roy's great. He's one of the best. And many Trump supporters follow that same line of thought. They were telling you how great DeSantis was. He's the man. He's the best. And then all of a sudden, once it was evident that DeSantis was going to run against, fuck that guy. He's the worst. It's stupidity. But whatever. I'm not losing sleep over it. But I'm not here to defend Trump as a likable person or anything like that. And if you're Ron DeSantis or you're Ted Cruz and you feel that Trump or people connected to Trump with Trump's blessing have personally attacked your family or you in heinous ways, fine, fucking hate the guy. I don't care. You could even be like, not only do I hate his personality, I think that he would be a danger as president. Because I think he would erode the Second Amendment, he would massively spend money, he wouldn't follow through with his promises, like he didn't in 2016, in that term. I've criticized Trump many times, no problem. But what I can't get over is this. How can you not look at the corruption and be like, this is the biggest issue? How can you, and I see it everywhere. Everywhere. With DeSantis influencers, so I'm waiting for DeSantis to be like, yeah, this is fucking crazy. It's crazy. All these cases against Trump, he's like, well, we're just gonna wait and see how it plays out. Boy, there sounds like a guy who's gonna drain the swamp, is gonna fight against corruption. And the influencers are even worse. Trump's guilty, he did it, yep, insurrection, January 6th, yep. I'll bet there's a lot of DeSantis people tonight that are giddy. Oh, great, yeah, well, see, safe bet now, go with DeSantis. Don't fall for the psyop. They want you to vote for Trump, vote for DeSantis. He won't be able to win a general now that, Colorado said this. Why don't we put that shit aside for a minute? Trump or DeSantis or Vivek or Nikki Haley or Joe Biden, that's fucking small potatoes in the grand scheme of, are we going to allow this shit to occur? Are we going to allow this corruption to occur? If whoever the nominee is for either party is unwilling to tackle this corruption, to even speak on it, then I don't give a fuck. They are worthless. I don't care if I agree with them on dozens of other issues. Well, they're fiscally conservative. Who gives a fuck? Fiscal conservative will mean nothing if the institutions are this corrupt that they could say, oh, by the way, we're going to charge you with the crime and say that you can no longer be president. Fuck off. How hard would it be for DeSantis to immediately been like Vivek and like, this court decision is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. These activist court. How hard would it have been for DeSantis 3 minutes after the decision came down to go to Twitter and say that? How hard? They could have even said, fuck Trump. He's an asshole. We understand people don't like him, but you can't do this. You can't do it! What's he doing? Waiting for a focus group to tell him what he's supposed to say? It's mind-blowing. There have been people. I've seen DeSantis influencers. Now, let me concede here. I heard about this story like 10 minutes before I came on. I watched a little of Viva's video, like the middle there. And just skipped through because I saw he was talking about his dog. So I skipped through and I heard the part about the stay until January 4th. Just like 2 minutes of it. Anywho. Maybe I saw a handful of like DeSantis influencers that were like, yeah, this is crazy. Which, again, you could say this is crazy. This needs to be rejected in the strongest possible terms. But I'm still going to support DeSantis. I don't have a problem with that. That's totally in bounds and reasonable. It may be where I end up. But it seems to me, through DeSantis' sort of unenergetic milquetoast responses to, I fired people. I fired Soros prosecutors, and, we plan on moving some of the field offices out of D.C. Okay, maybe those are steps along the way of what needs done. But, like, it's evident, right, that they're using lawfare to attack the former president and the potential future president, future candidate. It's evident. Like, it's evident that they've abused the system. Why hasn't one question of this really been brought up? Other than, well, if Trump's convicted, would you still support him if he wins? That's it. Vivek gets it. Fuck, if I was a Democrat running, I would be like, what? No, this is crazy. What are you doing? We'll beat the shit out of Trump. We don't care. What else matters? And again, what's so frustrating to me is, did you see Casey DeSantis the other day, right? So, like, let me talk a little trash on someone I like, John Burke, who I do spaces with oftentimes on the Thursday and Friday. So, a couple weeks ago, we were doing, he's been very busy, which, good for him. He's been working with Rumble. He's gone physically to the one debate. Great, good stuff. I wish him the best. I really do. And hopefully we'll be working together here. This week will be tough, obviously, with Christmas coming up and stuff. But you catch my drift. Anywho, he says that, well, listen, any crime committed by Trump, or in this case, George Santos is who we were talking about, anything that he did is reason that we have to stand on principle. Any crime, no matter how small, we have to stand on principle and say, no, he can no longer be in office. And my point was, you can't disarm yourself like that and say, we will stand by these almost impossible principles. Any crime means that we can't allow you in office anymore. When the other side says, we'll blatantly do the most heinous of crimes and fuck off, we're not going to remove ourselves from office. You can't do that. Inevitably, what will happen is you'll just be swamped and you'll lose. And he said, but we can't give away our dignity. We can't give away our principles. And I said, what if DeSantis is accused of campaign finance violations? What if it turns out that he used $1,000 from his campaign to take his wife to Chuck E. Cheese's with the kids, and they had fun playing arcades, and it wasn't part of the campaign? Then, would you say if DeSantis wins the presidency, I'm sorry, he must be impeached and step down? Would you say that? And he was like, I'll have to think about it. I'll guarantee all these people are like, yeah, Trump probably did that shit, or it's not a big deal, or fuck Trump, I just don't care. Right? I'll guarantee if DeSantis would win, which I would be more than happy for, if he win the primary, then win the presidency, I certainly would support him. Right? If the Democrats come out with some bogus shit, and you have to understand, particularly like campaign finance laws, they're written in a way that probably they can make an accusation that you broke it. What are DeSantis defenders going to say? What would they say? Do you think for a second that, like, Justin Hart, who's one of these DeSantis people on Twitter, do you think he'd be like, well, they said DeSantis, well, even if I don't think DeSantis did this, it's weak to support DeSantis knowing that the country will say, oh, well, he's facing charges and that puts him in a weak position, so we'll have to go with a different candidate next time. You think he'll say that? What if they decide, I don't know, to get FISA warrants to spy on everyone connected to his team based on lies and opposition research? and they find out that people on his team committed crimes that are totally unrelated to DeSantis or politics. Doesn't matter, it smears DeSantis, right? Well, what if there's a rally that DeSantis is upset about something when he's president, and there's a rally, and he says, we're not going to stand for this, illegal immigration, the corruption, these Soros prosecutors, we're not going to stand. And then, after he leaves, the rally gets out of hand, and some people attack police. And they say, oh, DeSantis incited an insurrection. Then what? We have to stand on principle? Oh, it would be a bad look to allow DeSantis to run at that point? We have to choose someone else? Oh, look, there's Nikki Haley. There's Chris Christie. Let's choose them. Oh, and they won't be accused of that because that's exactly what the establishment wants. Neocons that are in the big club. Now, I don't need for the idea of self-preservation to say we shouldn't have exploitation of these laws. We shouldn't have a double standard because it could affect me someday. I don't need that because I'm not an immoral sack of shit. I'm not someone like our friend Lindsay here that says, I'm okay with communists being banned and Nazis being banned and people that support Palestine being banned because I'm not a communist. That's not me. So I'm okay with it. Now, if it was a group that I support, then I would have a problem. But I'm okay if it's not me. I would say no, even those groups that I despise, not just because I'm afraid that there could be a slippery slope and it would get to me, even if it never comes to that. And I had guarantees that it would somehow never come to me or people I support. I would still say, no, this is wrong. That's right, just kidding. I don't know how they do it either. Literally, if a judge in Kansas said, we think that BLM was an insurrection and a rebellious group, they attacked the White House May 30th, 2020, they used Molotov cocktails and burnt down a guard station, here's a bunch of Democrats in our state that supported BLM, they're no longer allowed to run for office. What's their argument? Nuh-uh, that's not a real insurrection. That would be their argument. Nuh-uh, that's outrageous. It's authoritarian. They don't give a shit, kidding. They don't give a fuck. They would just say, they're good people? Duh. Trump's Hitler? He's like a Nazi, so, clearly that's an insurrection? They don't give a fuck. This is the point, and again, I understand, like, it's not, I don't want to come off sounding arrogant. I don't want to come off sounding like I'm somehow some galaxy brain smarter than everyone, because I do not believe that. What's most likely is that I've got some wires crossed in ways that aren't with other people, and it makes me think of things in a different way. This is why I was so animated about the Jamaal Bowman fire alarm thing. Because it is in your face. In your fucking face. Absolutely in your face. Evident. How full of shit they are. Oh, DeSantis finally spoke up? Good deal, Aftershock. Thank you so much. 922, good job. He says, the left invokes democracy to justify its use of power, even if it means abusing judicial power to remove a candidate from the ballot based on spurious legal grounds. SCOTUS should reverse. That's it? I mean, who the fuck is running DeSantis' campaign? I could be totally wrong. I could be totally wrong. But real quick, we'll get to DeSantis here. Yeah, so the fire alarm thing, they don't give it. So, like, those people that could look at the Bowman situation and be like, wow, he pulled the alarm to exit. It wasn't to cause a delay. Yeah, sure, him and all the Democrats wanted a delay. But the pulling of the alarm was clearly more likely to be him trying to unlock a door. A former principal pulled a fucking fire alarm and didn't know. In his words, I didn't know the alarm would go off. I didn't know. And the Democrats are like, yeah, it sounds reasonable. That's the most likely scenario. Yep. So then when Just Kidding says, well, I'm curious if some Republican judge would have the nerve to say, yeah, and by the way, all Democrats that supported BLM in our state are no longer allowed in the ballots. Because the 14th Amendment specifically says you can't run for state office, any office. The local sheriff that supported BLM, you're fucking out. The constable, gone. Your local comptroller, see ya. What will be their argument? Their argument will be, Jamaal Bowman pulled the fire alarm to escape. That'll be their argument. He was telling the truth. He didn't think the alarm would go off. That'll be their argument. Literally. In that situation where we literally have video evidence that's that fucking blatant, that shows he never even tried to go out there. He moved the sign, pulled the alarm, didn't try to go out the door. As ridiculous even before the video as the claim was. And they'll, with a straight face, just tell you, well, there's still questions to be, I don't know, just time to move on. What do you think they'll say? What do you think CNN will say? What do you think Joe Scarborough will say? What do you think Jake Tapper will say? What do you think Nancy Pelosi will say? Or Chuck Schumer? Or Joe Biden? What do you think they'll say? That's why it was so... Because what happens is, oftentimes, and I'm guilty of this as well, you come up in the course of a discussion or debate or argument, you come up with analogies. Well, if this would be like this. And usually the analogies are more hyperbolic. Sort of the slippery slope action or argument in practice. Well, if this happens, what about this situation? And it's an analogy that's taking it further. Would you support that? I can't think of an analogy to explain how indifferent Democrats are, the people that hate Trump, the people that support Democrats and the insurrection narrative. I can't think of a more blatant example than the Jamaal Bowman thing. I couldn't come up with a hypothetical scenario. And they're, with a straight face, they're like, I don't see a problem. I don't see it. So then why waste my time talking about the Burisma scandal? Or, wait a minute, what about the intricacies of this Colorado case? What do you think they're going to say? Yeah, Trump did that shit. He's guilty. And if you tried to do that to Democrats, you would be an anti-democratic authoritarian. That's it. You remember what I said previously? Well, if we can't debate, then where's that leave us? That's literally where we're at. They don't give a fuck. If it came down to brass tacks, there is no doubt in my mind. If they thought... See, I'm treated... It's the same... I'm used to this. I was treated this way in policy debate. I was considered harmless. Who am I? Some fucking... I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word. Some rural American... Oh, he's quirky, he's funny, he's got a good sense of humor. Yeah, we'll tolerate him. He's harmless. That's why I'm tolerated now. I'm streaming to 65 people. It's okay. He's harmless. No big deal. If I, ran for office and was, about to become governor, these fuckheads I debate in the left would absolutely come up with any narrative possible to stop me and support it. Even if it meant jailing me. They wouldn't give a fuck. Well, hey, he must have did that shit. In fact, again, I left, my computer crashed last night. I got an offer, I think, to debate on Dylan Burns' Hippy Dippy Championship. Remember there was this guy, Suspect Sushi, that was sort of casual friends with Dylan Burns. And he mentioned, because he knew Dylan was going to be there on January 6, 2020 in D.C., and Suspect Sushi was going to be there. He was like, hey man, I think shit might pop off. We think Antifa will show up. You probably shouldn't go. Dylan ratted his fucking ass out. He sent those... private DMs sent right to the fucking police. Oh, got violent insurrectionists there. Suspect Sushi went to jail for over a year. Because his buddy ratted him out. Pretty cool, huh? You don't think they'd do the same fucking thing to me? Or you? We just don't have power. We're not that important. Sushi represented something that they wanted to fight against. It's a nice chip on the shoulder. I helped take down the insurrectionist. I read someone today say that word was against TOS on YouTube. I don't know if that's true or not, but why play with fire? Desantis' comment. I completely disagree, Bleezer. I don't think it's a good comment. First off, the comment comes at 9:20. When was this? 6 o'clock? The decision came out. So 3 hours, 20 minutes. Now, to respond to someone says, I don't think DeSantis does, I completely agree with that. I don't think DeSantis is literally typing this out on Twitter. But but that's even worse for DeSantis because there's no way that as soon as this breaking national news came out that they weren't aware of it. And as soon as they were aware, surely you can't make the excuse, well, DeSantis was having dinner with his wife. So when he finally got around to getting, no, he could have had his team immediately. Yeah, Casimir, we did. We showed the Viva Frei. It's exactly what it is. They know the decision's bullshit, right? They have a stay that says it won't go into effect until January 4th, but if it gets challenged to the Supreme Court, then it doesn't go into effect until the court issues their ultimate ruling, which they know the court will ultimately rule to allow Trump on the ballot. They understand that completely. And so the intent is to rile up some Trump supporter that will then go out and commit some violent action so they can say, see, Trump's even more dangerous. But Casimir, have you considered this? Tell me what you think about this. The other part of this is to inevitably discredit the Supreme Court. Because the game plan will be this. They understand the Supreme Court will overrule. They hope that a Trump supporter commits an act of violence. I'm sure the feds are right now, just like with the Whitmer kidnapping hoax, trying to encourage people in chat rooms and telegrams and in WhatsApp and whatever to commit acts of violence right now. I'm guaranteed that's occurring, right? Some lunatic may or may not do that. Maybe because he communicated with the feds, most likely, or maybe not. It's a possibility. I don't know that SCOTUS will not roll on it. I don't know that that's the case. But it's irrelevant anyways. But the second part of this game is then, if the Democrats win in 2024, they'll say, see, this is why we need to make radical changes to the Supreme Court. Because Trump's clearly guilty. And the only reason that this violent insurrectionist criminal was allowed in the ballot was because of people like Clarence Thomas that refused to adhere to the decision of this Colorado court. And so we need to pack the court, or we need to remove certain justices, or we need to put term limits to make sure that Democrats can stack the deck now. Because the question is, the real question here to ask yourself is, what if it was an overwhelming Democrat Supreme Court? Then what? Hypothetically, if the Supreme Court comes out tomorrow and says, we looked at the case and we think it's legit. And then Pennsylvania says, oh, great. Josh Shapiro, the governor here, is like, oh, I'm going to have my attorney general also file this charge. And the Democrat Supreme Court in Pennsylvania, it's 5-2. Democrats would say, yep, Trump can't be in the ballot in Pennsylvania. Supreme Court already upheld that. And then Wisconsin does the same. Then what? And so this kills 2 birds with 1 stone. 3 birds. 1, it changes the national discourse to, again, insurrection, insurrection, insurrection. 2nd, they're hoping that it encourages some violence. But even if it doesn't, 3rd, it allows them going forward to delegitimize the Supreme Court. Now back to DeSantis' comment here. So he's like 3.5 hours late, inexplicably. And this is his comment. The left invokes democracy to justify its use of power, even if it means abusing judicial power to remove a candidate from the ballot based on spurious legal grounds. SCOTUS should reverse. Bleezers, you think that's a good... Like, sometimes I feel... And let me get real black-pilled for you here for a minute. You ready? Trump ain't gonna do shit about the corruption. DeSantis ain't gonna do shit about the corruption. Nikki Haley wouldn't do shit about the corruption. Vivek maybe would, but doesn't have a chance to win, so I ain't gonna do shit about the corruption. It's not going to. Trump, you listen to the guy, and it's evident that, like, he still doesn't get it. He does not get it. He doesn't get it. If Trump got it, he would walk in day one if he won and said, the FBI is fucking done. Done. Anybody think there's a chance of that? Right, but please, they're saying he said the bare minimum. He could have said less. No. prior to this, what's DeSantis' claims been about corruption? He's like, totally agree with them, where he's like, there were Soros prosecutors that I thought were shit in Florida and I got rid of them. Okay. What are you going to do about this corruption? What are you going to do about the fact that, for example, take fucking politics out of it, take Trump out of it, take DeSantis out of it, take January 6 people out of it? How about the fact that my federal government literally could get subpoenas if I liked someone's tweet? Get a subpoena against me. That's what they did. Anyone who liked Trump's tweet was caught up in a subpoena, collection of records. How about the fact that they could spy on me in a whim with a FICE warrant, even if it's blatant lies? How about that? How about the fact that they could coerce social media to censor me? How about that? What are they doing about it? What's DeSantis' big plan? I've asked DeSantis supporters, and here's, like, if I'm really going to shit on DeSantis, I might as well go all the way. If you watch DeSantis in those debates, like, Chris Christie was absolutely right in that last debate. DeSantis ain't answering questions. Like, if you're, and again, I'm saying this as someone I have to rethink now, but as someone up until today, I was like, I'm voting for DeSantis in the primary, right? Someone in here that's a DeSantis supporter, answer me this question. Is DeSantis going to send money to Ukraine or not? Anyone? Now, I haven't looked to see what his official website says or anything, but I heard him in all the debates, and I was left scratching my head. They're like, would you send money? And he says, well, certainly some of the money that we're sending is being wasted. Okay, true statement. And I wouldn't give money for, like, to pay people's salaries and stuff in Ukraine, politicians. Okay, but that doesn't answer the question. Are you sending any money? No answer. Would you go to war with Iran? That's a question. Would you go to war with Iran? Would you send troops to Iran? Well, if they attack us, I would. Right, that's not the question. The question was based on the conflict between Israel and Palestine. What's the answer? I don't know. What's he going to do about the only issue that I really give a shit about, corruption? What's the big plan? I'm attempting to be as accurate as possible from what I've heard. We're going to move a bunch of the FBI offices out of D.C. And we're going to fire people that we think have been bad there. Well, what does that mean? Vivek said he'll, what, get rid of 80% of the bureaucratic state. That sounds like a concrete plan. I might suggest the number be much higher than 80%, but fair enough. That's a radical plan that I could get behind. Casimir. I don't know what you think of Vivek. Maybe you think he's a charlatan. Casimir is more along the ANCAP position, the sort of Mises libertarian position. He would say get rid of all of it, I'm quite sure, right? But Casimir, I ask you, the 80% number, that's probably something you're like, okay, that's at least attention grabbing, right? Doesn't go as far as I would have, but that's a serious commitment. If he would follow through, you might think he's full of shit and wouldn't do it. Right, 99, right. But it's pretty milquetoast to just be like, we'll fire some bad people. What? You know how many people had to know that the FISA warrants against Trump were full of shit at the FBI? Like, the entire top floor fucking knew. We'll fire a handful of people. Now, maybe when he says we'll fire people, he means they'll fire 1,000 people. I don't know. He hasn't articulated. Right, yeah, keep the janitors. Well, they actually do work. Where, it's someone whose corruption's my big issue, up until today, where am I hanging my hat with DeSantis? You know, I guess what I could say is, well, he did get rid of some corrupt prosecutors in Florida, and he has said that, yeah, there's corruption, and we're tired of the targeting of Americans, and we'll move people out of D.C., and we'll fire people that need to. Okay, I guess. What's Trump's plan? I mean, first off, we already saw Trump version 1. He didn't do shit. Really? What did he do? Drain the swamp by appointing John Bolton and Bill Barr? What? He could have fucking pardoned Assange. He could have unredacted and released all the evidence of the corruption of the fucking coup against him by the FBI. He could have done it. He didn't. He trusted Bill Barr, career statesman, career cop, corrupt cop. But maybe he's learned his lesson. Does it sound like it? You see him get interviewed by Tucker. He's like, Gavin Newsom was a good guy. Cuomo did good, with COVID there in in New York better than DeSantis. What the fuck are you talking about? I don't give a shit. Nah, I'm not defending Trump on that. I'm sorry. His supporters weren't ready. Bullshit. Well, if they throw him in prison and he never becomes president again, whoopsie daisy, guess he lost his opportunity, huh? No. I don't give a shit if it would have cost him the 2020 election. Spoiler alert, he didn't win the 2020 election. And I don't give a shit if you say, well, he was cheated. Maybe, but he ain't there. He ain't the guy making the decisions right now. I should open up panels. Pisco is not a good person. Let me rephrase. Pisco might be a decent person to share a beer with and have a barbecue with and go to the baseball game with. Maybe so. And I certainly have friends in real life that I absolutely cannot stand them politically. And in the back of I have one friend in particular that's a good friend of mine who I have no fucking doubt that if he was given power would have taken my child away from me if I wasn't vaccinated. I have no doubt. But I try my best to separate that shit. Pisco is absolutely a partisan hack. That doesn't make you a good person. He is not. I can't make the situation any clearer than the Jamaal Bowman case. Pisco literally said, although it would be unlikely that Bowman pulled the fire alarm. And do you understand why the Bowman case is important? Because the narrative, again, it keeps going back. There are certain, I don't know what word to put, landmark incidents that are sacred cows for the establishment that they need, that they could keep pointing back to, and you can't question them. Let me give you an example. 9/11. Now, a libertarian like Casimir would be like, Patriot Act, myself as well, I was saying, this Patriot Act's absurd. It's a clear violation of the Bill of Rights. It's a clear intrusion from the state into our lives. It's a blank fucking check to spy on all of us. We literally no longer have privacy. As long as the government says, potential terrorists, they can do whatever they want. They could indefinitely detain you. They could go in and find people that have mental issues. Literal mentally challenged people. They did this. This one Muslim guy, mentally challenged, and honeypot him. A guy who literally is in special ed classes. And radicalize him with the promise of, oh, these chicks like you and stuff like that, and then bust him. It's insane. And so in order for the public to accept that, that has to be an unquestionable landmark incident. If it would, and I'm not saying this, don't say I'm a 9/11 conspiracy, I'm not saying that, though there are significant questions that are unanswered, particularly about the funding, why didn't we go after the people in Saudi, the Sauds, etc. But I digress. I'm not saying the towers are holograms, no one died, that's all bullshit, right? But let's say hypothetically that the FBI did pay and train the terrorists to do it. Like, if that was the case, what would people think about the Patriot Act if that came out? Whoops! Now, sometimes these house of cards fall, but it's way later and people say it's time to move on. Like Russia collusion. That was a landmark incident. All of this shit, the FISA warrants on Trump's team, the never-ending investigations, the special, all of it was because Russia interfered in our election and they colluded with Trump. The landmark incident, the one you can't question, is they hacked the DNC server. Can we see the server? No! You can't. Did the FBI look at the server? No! They looked at a copy. But CrowdStrike, that was paid by Hillary Clinton's team, they said Russia did it, and the FBI said, oh, okay, I guess we'll just take the copy. We won't look at it. You can't question it. Because if that didn't occur, and now we know, oh, and by the way, it turns out that Trump's team never colluded with Russia, and actually it was the Democrats and Hillary's team that was literally colluded with a suspected Russian spy named Igor Dushenko. All of a sudden, the never-ending investigation to Trump and the 24-hour news cycle for 4 years about Trump colluding with Russia and all this shit, well, that seems pretty ridiculous to the average American. So you can't question it. COVID. You can't question if it came from a lab. Because if it came from a lab that was financed by the very people that are telling you that you need to make sacrifices, in this case, Dr. Fauci, oh boy, people might say, fuck you. No. You couldn't question it. That's why you couldn't question the lab leak. You couldn't question vaccine effectiveness. You couldn't question side effects of vaccines. You couldn't question whether or not natural immunity was banned. You'd get banned until it no longer mattered. Ah, it's a long time ago. Move on. Could not. That's why you were censored. You can't question the 2020 election. You can't question it. If we would find out, like if one state would come out, if Georgia would come out and say, actually, here's proof, 23,000 ballots that were fraudulent, and it would have been enough to sway. What does that do to this whole narrative? So you can't question the election. You can't question January 6th being an insurrection. It is a seminal moment in their attempts at authoritarianism. You can't question it. Everything is deriving from, you can't question the election, you can't question January 6th. Couple steps, Trump can't be on the ballot. Trump needs to be charged with 92 felonies. You can't question it. They'll either outright censor you, they'll accuse you, they'll investigate you, they'll accuse you of being a ridiculous conspiracy theorist. You can't question it. Now, looking at the January 6th narrative, there were people that did not engage in violence. When you start to ask, this is how absurd it becomes. They need it. It can't just be, it was a riot that got out of control. But it wasn't any sort of serious attempt or any possibility that the people that day that were basically unarmed, like, if we're generous, we'll say there were, 10 people with firearms? We're literally going to overthrow the most powerful country in the history of the world. 10 people with firearms and a bunch of other people. Going to overthrow it. That's what we're told. That's what we have to believe. As nonsensical as it sounds, that's what we have to believe. That it was an insurrection. And when Trump said go peacefully protest, that was code for go fuck shit up. Go riot. Go overthrow the government. That's what they want you to believe. That justifies their mass surveillance, mass incarceration of even peaceful people, subpoenaing everyone around Trump, even media people like Steve Bannon, other members of Congress, all of it. That's why they had a TV producer help produce the January 6th committee. That's why they didn't have anyone on the January 6th committee that would raise questions, that would disagree. That's why they did so much of the evidentiary stuff in private. That's why all of a sudden we don't know what happened to all the Secret Service members' text messages. Sorry, a lot of the testimony was behind closed doors. We don't have it anymore. We did give it to the prosecutors that are going after Trump, but sorry, we can't give it to Trump's team and we can't give it to Republicans that question it. We can't do that. It has to be an insurrection. It has to be. And one of the ways that they're claiming that, okay, how is it an insurrection? Like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? They're saying, because it was an attempt to stop a peaceful transition of power. And you're like, well, how? It's not like they would have got in there and, the QAnon shaman sits in the chair and the Senate's like, that's it! I now declare myself president! And Trump's my vice president. That's not how it works. Well, no. What they were doing was, and the way the law is written is, they were trying to stop an official proceeding, the certification of the electors. That's what makes it uniquely. That's what makes it sedition. That's what makes it an insurrection. Because they were trying to stop, and that's the law they cite. See, it says if you try to stop an official proceeding, that's what they'll cite. That's it? So then, right, because you might be like, well, what about all these other violent interactions? Like May 30th, they used Molotov, unlike January 6th, they used lethal weapons. They used Molotov cocktails. They attacked police. They burned down a guard station. They attempted to get into the White House to remove Trump. And not only wasn't there a massive FBI investigation and, video images, can you identify this person, blah, 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 and the subpoenaing of Democrats and those that supported Black Lives Matter or supported those rights. No, quite to the contrary. They made fun of Trump. Oh, he had to get moved to a bunker pitch. So when I bring this up to the left, this is what they say. They say, well, they didn't get into the White House. Okay, so what? An attempted insurrection? They didn't actually insurrect on January 6th either, right? But your argument is there was an attempt. That's what makes it serious. So why would it be any different May 30th? Just because, unlike January 6th, where they intentionally didn't have a police presence because they wanted to have it set up so that they could use this for authoritarianism, well, they actually had law enforcement there on May 30th because they knew the lefties would get violent, like they always do. Yeah, Nico, that's been what the whole show's been about, man. So anyways, I'm long-winded here to the just kidding, I think, that said he thinks Pisco's a good person. So where am I going with this? So that's what they hang their hat on. Well, what was the official proceeding they were trying to interrupt May 30th? There wasn't an official proceeding. Therefore, you couldn't claim that it was an insurrection. What the fuck are you talking about? So if a bunch of people that hate this country get together and decide that they're going to harm a bunch of elected officials in this country, that's not an insurrection unless they're proceeding with a vote at the moment? Nonsense. But that's the argument they make. That's what makes it an insurrection. That's what makes it a seditious conspiracy. That they attempted to stop an official government proceeding. Now fast forward to the Jamaal Bowman situation. The Jamaal Bowman situation pointed out the absurdity of that. Because why did Jamaal Bowman pull the fire alarm? Well, because they wanted to read, the Democrats wanted to read the bill that was put forth by the Republicans and didn't feel they had enough time. By the way, a valid criticism. I'm always annoyed that they put out these 1,000-page bills and shit and they only have 20 minutes to read it. It's nonsensical. Nonetheless, what they decided, and Democrats have done that many times as well, what they decided to do was employ legal means to delay so they had more time to read and see what was going on before they cast their vote. And then, as the Democrats were employing a bunch of different filibuster type things and this and that and the other to try to cause a delay, Jamaal Bowman just happened to pull a fire alarm. Which we don't have a press that's like an actual media, but according to the limited accounts I've seen, I know Democrats won't accept this, but from Marjorie Taylor Greene's the only person I saw directly comment, she said it did cause somewhat of a delay. That they had people sort of file in a way that was unusual one by one to make sure that there wasn't an actual situation, a fire or some other situation why the alarm went off. So even if it only delayed 5-10 minutes, doesn't matter. The law doesn't say, well, if the delay didn't take that much time, no big deal. It says, no, if you engage in an unlawful action to delay an official proceeding of our government, that's the sedition. That's what they're calling insurrection. Okay, that's what Jamaal Bowman did. And I accurately predicted, I knew, right? I knew because I've talked to Pisco so many times, I knew what Pisco's take would be. I predicted it before I heard from him, that his take would be, no, there's no proof that he was trying to cause a delay, but it's okay to charge him with the crime of pulling the fire alarm. You can't do that. That's a small crime. That he could be charged with. Pisco doesn't give a fuck if Jamaal Bowman's kicked out of office. Why would he care? Pisco's agenda is Orange Man bad. And he is in so deep at this point that he has to defend the corrupt institutions that go after Orange Man. That's it. It's that simple. He can't accept, holy fuck, I was fed this line of shit, and even though I hate Trump and I think he did a bunch of bad shit, the FBI was specifically targeting him and protecting his opponents. He can't accept it. He's in too fucking deep. So I knew, because of that, what's one of the central pillars you can't attack? January 6th. January 6th has to be an insurrection. And the people that were charged and didn't commit violence, it's still an insurrection because they were trying to stop an official proceeding. Okay, that's what Jamaal Bowman. He can't admit to it. He can't. He can't do it. Because then the logical explanation, well, what's the precedent? Well, now we have to subpoena all Jamaal Bowman's records. Who did he text that day? Who did he email? Let's see their records. Did he tell another congressperson they were going to do it? Now it's a seditious conspiracy. Multiple people were involved. Did anybody in the press know? We better subpoena them too. You can't have that. So he comes up with this absurd rationalization. Well, I think it's absurd that Bowman thought the alarm wouldn't go off, but, there's three possibilities. Either one, he thought he pulled it and didn't realize the alarm would go off, and I think that's dumb. Second, he knew the alarm would go off but thought it would unlock the door, and so that's why he was doing it, because he was in a rush. Or third, he did it for a delay. That's the three possibilities that Pisco outlines, and after much pulling of the teeth, he admits the least likely scenario, it's more likely that he pulled the alarm to get out the door than to cause a delay. Well, why? What makes it so unlikely that it was caused a delay? Because it wasn't in the direct building. It was in the adjacent building. Right, that's attached by tunnels, and still an alarm going off at the Capitol, you could reasonably intuit would cause a delay even in the adjacent building because they think something serious is happening in the Capitol building. And again, they're connected by tunnels. But he said, nope, there's no chance of that. Why? Just because I just don't think. I don't think he would do that. No, I just don't think. We already talked about Colorado. We're sort of talking about it now. So, because he can't say there's a double standard. So then, to finish this up, so what comes down is he's like, well, that's just no proof. There's just no proof. We just don't know. Now we have the video. Now we have proof. Did Peace come out and say, it's totally wrong? I thought Rob was a dick, and I was a dick to him. Because the entire argument was so fucking farcical that I was ashamed for him. And I also was upset because I realized I've argued with Pisco hundreds of hours probably when it comes to videos we've done and typing, and it was all wasted. It was all wasted. The people in my chat that told me, like, this dude's fucking worthless, he's bad faith, he's never going to admit to anything that would destroy his net. He never. It doesn't matter. He's full of shit. They were right. That's exactly what was going on. That's why I was so loud. I'm like, dude, you're going to die on this fucking hill. No, it's just so... It's more likely he pulled the alarm to exit the door, to unlock the door. A former principal who knows what a fire alarm is, it's more likely he did that than to cause a delay. Then the video comes out. And Pisco could have said, okay, I thought Rob was a dick, but yeah, he was right, I was wrong. Clearly at this point, it's most likely scenarios it was the cause of delay. And more importantly, he would have said, now that not only have we seen the video, but we see the police interaction, the transcript where he said, I didn't think the alarm would go off, I was pulling it to get out the door, which is clearly bullshit. He should also be charged with lying to officers. And he should probably be charged and subpoenaed and all of his records and all that for intentionally causing a delay and sedition. But Pisco didn't say that. And he said instead, well, yeah, this raises questions, but still, we have to be fair and see what was going on. I let the shit go. Then he kept tagging me on Twitter. Oh, Rob said that a fire alarm could never unlock a door. No, I didn't. I said there's probably a 20% chance that's what that one could have done. But there's almost a 0% chance that if you were coming across a door and saw that it was locked, that you would be like, I'll go pull that fire alarm on the door because maybe this is one of those... It would be the equivalent of being like, oh, I see a gun, that's being shot right there at the gun range. I see a gun that's being shot. But I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to aim it at someone and pull the trigger because I assume it's one of those fancy cap guns. It's shooting blanks. And I'd be like, what sense is that? Like, you shot and you harmed someone significantly. And then Pisco would be like, but don't those sorts of guns exist? Don't blanks exist? Yeah? Okay. Okay then. Blanks exist. And you seem to say blanks didn't exist. I didn't say that. I said that's absurd that someone would think that. So to answer your question, that's why he's not a good person. He might be a fine son and brother, and maybe he'll be a fine father. I don't know. I don't give a shit. I certainly don't wish ill on him. That's not what I'm saying. But that guy's a partisan fucking hack. And he's out there tonight taking victory laps like, yay, Trump's off the ballot. So to answer your question, no, he's not a good person. And there is no amount of corruption he would be unwilling to finally admit, oh, this is too much. Again, when I asked him, what about the FISA warrants? What about the FBI illegally spying on the President of the United States teams? It was regrettable. But what more can you do? I don't think it was that big of a deal. That's what he said. All you have to do is say, okay, if Trump wins in 2024 and he does the exact same thing, pays for opposition research sourced by a suspected Russian spy to accuse his political opponents of colluding with Russia, and then has FBI agents that are like, let's go Brandon, they're tweeting, and I hate Biden, we need an insurance policy to stop Biden, and they use it without verifying it to illegally spy on Biden's team for 4 fucking years, for a year, and then keep that investigation going for 4 years. What do you think Pisco would say? Would he say, well, eventually there'll be safeguards. We'll get to the bottom of it 3-4 years from now and we'll see what happens. It's a long time. It's regrettable. It's regrettable. That's it. What would be once Trump's done, once we go back, and which will probably happen, once we go back to predictability, the next Republican that'll probably win, because I don't think Republicans will win in 2024, I hope I'm wrong, but the next that'll probably win a national election will be a Chris Christie figure, a Marco Rubio, a Mitt Romney. And then he could go back. At that point, it could be like, well, Trump's gone. Yeah, mistakes were made. Yeah, okay. Maybe Rob's right. Maybe mistakes were made. Maybe they should have done more against Hillary. Maybe they should have done more against Biden or Jamaal Bowman. Oh, well, it's regrettable. It's done with now. Now we can get back to the, establishment A, establishment B. Now we can get back. Just like with COVID. Yeah. Sorry we said we wanted to take your kids and jail you and you shouldn't be allowed to leave your house. Sorry that we were wrong about all that shit. But anyways, let's have amnesty for that and move forward. Let's be forgiving. We were trying our best. Now, to get back, I think DeSantis' statement on this is weak. The statement should have been, Vivek's statement's much better, right? Because he's actually putting his money where his mouth is, although it appears. But the real statement that should have been issued is another example of the immense corruption and a reason why we need a top-down, complete dismantling of these institutions that are weaponizing the FBI, law enforcement, over and over and over. It doesn't have to be that strong-worded. It doesn't have to be complete dismantling. That's what I want to hear. But it's always like, and then a lot of his influencers just go look. They're like, yeah, Trump did that shit. January 6th was an insurrection. Trump incited an insurrection. What do I envision as the path to that taking place? It won't. It won't happen. There is no path, if I'm completely honest. I mean, the realistic path is 20, 30 years of getting back into the culture war. 2 or 3 generations of stopping the brainwashing of people in academia to our children until people realize the dangers of that sort of shit and the importance of holding people that are corrupt accountable. I don't know. That's probably the most likely scenario. I mean, hypothetically, this could piss enough people. Best case scenario in this part is this pisses off so many people, including moderates. It's like, what the fuck is happening? Maybe the Democrats that keep yelling about attacks on democracy are full of shit and they're the ones attacking democracy. And that encourages even the phony baloney people that are there now to at least pay lip service to like, whoa, this is too far, blah, blah, blah. Then hopefully you get someone in, like a DeSantis or a Trump or a Vivek that says, even if I wasn't going to do it before because I didn't think that there was the political, political capital to do it, now I think there is, and so now I'll start to take these actions. I guess that's the best case scenario. I'd say the chances of that happening are less than 1%. I think the chances of people getting fired up maybe 25, 30%, but the chance of then the right person winning and then taking that opportunity to do something, very small. But I'm trying to do my part. Now, that brings me to what I was going to talk about. So I'm very unimpressed with DeSantis' timing of his statement tonight, taking hours, and what the statement ended up being. And I'm also unimpressed with what he sort of talked about corruption. He said things that are okay, but it doesn't seem like he thinks this is a central issue. And there's certainly a lot of his influencers that are cheering for Trump to go to jail or something like that. But what I was originally going to talk about before this Colorado thing broke today was the Tucker Carlson interview with Tim Pool, where Tucker Carlson makes a claim where he's like, I'm not very online, but it seems like I like DeSantis. I think he's done good things, but seems like a lot of his influencers are incredibly nasty and they're tanking his campaign online. Then he went on to say he changed his position about Ukraine because of this donor, Ken Griffin. Now, I'm not sure whether or not Ken Griffin, or whatever the guy's name is the reason that DeSantis allegedly changed his position on Ukraine. I don't even know if DeSantis has changed his position on Ukraine. You want to know why? Because I don't know what DeSantis' position on Ukraine is. Because the criticism that Chris Christie made of him, as much as I hate Christie in that last debate, it's actually true. It's like, dude, you're not answering. Will you send money to Ukraine? Well, some money is being spent corruptly, right? And we shouldn't be financing salaries and stuff, okay? So you can send money or not? Are you saying I would send the monies other than that? Are you saying, therefore, I won't send any money? I don't know. Thank you, Floyd's Fork. So I can't speak to that. And I certainly am not getting into the weeds whether or not this dude donated to DeSantis. I don't know about that. But the idea, what really drew the ire of many DeSantis influencers was Trump's claim that they're tanking his campaign and they're incredibly nasty. Now, I put a video up on Twitter today. I could just play it. In fact, that's what I'll do. That's what I'll do. I'll put the link, and you could like it if you like it. It was recorded on my phone, so... Of course, this will probably crash my computer, but... Oh, double vision. Look at that. Here we go.
And he made comments about how DeSantis... So last night, Tucker Carlson was on with Tim Pool, and he made comments about how DeSantis online influencers are bad people and nasty and things like that, and there's been an uproar about it, particularly from those very same DeSantis influencers. Now, I want to start by saying that I currently am supporting DeSantis and will vote for him in the primary, barring some sort of change. So I don't say any of this commentary coming from a place where I dislike DeSantis. I also know many people that are online personalities and influencers that I think are great people that I support, even if I think they've made strategic mistakes. Two things could be true at the same time. First, I think the implication that could be drawn from what Tucker Carlson said is that somehow DeSantis influencers are uniquely bad or something like that. Objectively, I think I could say and back this up pretty clearly that there are many online Trump influencers that I have criticized that have been far nastier and hurtful than the DeSantis influencers. I think that that's true. Objectively, I think it's true overwhelmingly. And so there is criticism that could be levied at Tucker Carlson for saying, well, look, if you're going to call out DeSantis influencers, why aren't you calling out the terrible Trump influencers? I think that's a fair point to make. However, simultaneously, many of these same DeSantis influencers have been nasty, have done things that I think just aren't that intelligent, particularly if you know that in order for DeSantis to win a general election, you're going to need Trump voters to go ahead and vote for him. And so by speaking so many Trump voters as cultists and things like that, there's a sense of arrogance among many DeSantis supporters. Now, is there room to criticize Trump? Sure. Are there people that vote for Trump that will support anything Trump does? Yes. But strategically, it doesn't make sense, and it does come off as if there's this sort of nastiness and arrogance from many DeSantis influencers. And ironically, many of them are proving Tucker Carlson correct by today linking the clip of that Tucker Carlson quote and saying Tucker sold out and he's just paid. That's the only reasons he's saying this, and I never liked him and I hate him and I won't watch him and blah, blah, blah. These are the sorts of things that Tucker himself is criticizing. It's okay to be like, look, Tucker, what about what the Trump people are saying? That's fine. But to just claim that he's some sort of cultist and he's only saying what he's saying because he's paid, that may even be true. Maybe he is being paid. But it's that sort of jumping to conclusions and making those sorts of claims that's exactly what Tucker's talking about. Now, the truth is this. I think right now that objectively DeSantis would be better. I think that he has better policy prescriptions. I think that he's more sober-minded and will go after the swamp. I don't know that it'll be perfect or anything like that, but I like my chances with him better than with Trump. Well, I think with Trump, he seems to be saying, oh, I'm not sure, maybe I wouldn't roll out Nikki Haley, and Newsom was a good guy, and Cuomo did better than DeSantis. All of this stuff is, makes me believe that Trump's not actually going to drain the swamp, just like he didn't in his first term. Why is it then that DeSantis doesn't seem to be gaining much traction? Well, a lot of it might speak to sort of his charisma and things like that, but I think a lot of it is his campaign hasn't been ran well, and that includes his online influencers. And look, Trump is the de facto incumbent. whatever you think of Trump's failures, which I spoke up when it mattered during his presidency, the truth is he accomplished something that many people thought was impossible. He almost single-handedly challenged the establishment and was able to achieve an unbelievable upset victory in 2016. And even though he left lacking when it came to draining the swamp, because he was elected, the evidence of the swamp is more evident to people, just normal people, to see how the media, the FBI, all of these agencies and institutions colluded to take down populist people or to take down people that criticize our establishment governments. You can't take that away from Trump, and because of that, there are people that love Trump. There are people in my family in rural Pennsylvania here who never voted their entire lives until 2016 because they thought with Trump, finally, here was a national politician that spoke up for them. You might say, but Trump's a charlatan, he didn't really speak up for them, but that's how people feel. And so DeSantis had to understand that it was Trump's party going in to this election season. Now, that doesn't mean he shouldn't have ran. That doesn't mean that he shouldn't criticize Trump. All of that's fair game. However, you have to understand that it's unstrategic to just come after Trump people and Trump himself by saying that he's a cultist, he's a Democrat, I would never vote for him. If it's between Trump or Biden, I wouldn't vote for Trump. I don't understand this commentary. And I think that if you're a DeSantis supporter, you have to ask yourself, I think DeSantis is just better than Trump. So why isn't he doing better? Why isn't he the front runner? Why isn't he at least like neck and neck with Trump at this point? And I think a lot of it has to do with the way the campaign's been ran and with influencers. The other thing is this, because there's this love for Trump, there is an unfair double standard, which people know that Trump's got like a potty mouth and he's vindictive and he's nasty and they know his supporters are like that. To me, that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be criticized. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't point it out, but it's sort of already baked into the cake. And many DeSantis people didn't have a problem when these influencers were going after Democrats or going after media personalities and things like that. Now, listen, I also think that friendly fire is worse than going after people on the left and the people in the establishment that deserve it. But the point is, everybody understood this is what was going on. DeSantis is supposed to be more of the policy person. He has the policies that Trump spoke of, but he could do it in a sober-minded way. He could be aggressive, but he's also not going to resort to pettiness. And so when you see many of his influencers, oh, you're just in a cult, oh, Tucker's bad, I'm going to boycott him forever, you can see why this seems to impact people more than even though Trump people are objectively nastier and doing dumber things. So I don't understand why people in the DeSantis camp aren't trying to criticize Trump for his policies and things like that, but not go after any of his voters. I don't understand why some of them are so upset that they'd rather cheer for a Biden presidency or some, vote third party than another Trump presidency if Trump wins the general. And this seems to be motivated because Trump's just mean and his people are mean. If you're voting because influencers are mean or because of mean words, and that's preventing you from voting against this establishment, against this Biden administration that's been so disastrous with our border, with our economy, almost leading us into World War III, then I think you're making a huge strategic mistake. Similarly, I don't understand if you're a Trump supporter and you think Trump's got the primary locked up, why aren't you kissing the ass of DeSantis supporters right now, knowing you're going to need every vote to overcome any sort of corruption that the Democrats and the establishment have going into the general election? So, yeah, if you want to criticize Tucker for what he said, no problem. If you hate Tucker and don't want to watch him ever again, no problem. But I just think it's ironic that many of the people that are just like, Tucker's a cultist, I'll never watch him again, he's terrible, are sort of proving the point that Tucker was making in the first place. All right, thanks so much, everyone. Have a good one.
Send me a link to that, Aftershock. So there's so much going on, I apologize here. I did want to talk about it. I think that story is important. Yeah, all that's true. Basically the point I'm making is this. I don't have a problem saying I don't give a shit. I really don't. Like, I'll argue. First off, I think all of it's stupid. I think the corruption is so huge. I don't mind the infighting. I understand people are going to be nasty. I'll call out when I think things are fucking stupid. Right? I think Vivek is the best candidate. If he's telling the truth. He's saying the best things. He doesn't have a chance, though. When it comes, before today, when it comes to Trump or DeSantis, I think I was a DeSantis person. I would certainly support either of them. I would never vote for Nikki Haley. I wouldn't vote for Trump if Nikki Haley's his VP. No, what I want to see, Aftershock, is the Colorado Republican Party switching to a caucus system. That's what I want to see. It won't matter in the grand scheme of things, though, right? Because if they switch to a caucus system, okay, they could do with their primary whatever they want. But if, for argument's sake, if the court would uphold it, they would say, fine, you as a party can put whoever the hell you want in your primary because you're a caucus system, but he ain't getting on the ballot for the general election. Yeah, so, I mean, it wouldn't solve the worst case scenario, I guess is what I'm saying. But, yeah, good for them, though. So anyways, back to this Trump-DeSantis, I don't give a shit to hurt people's feelings. I don't. I also am trying to be strategic and win in 2024 and trying to bridge the gap between influencers I know that are DeSantis people and ones that are Trump people. But I'll call out when I think things are over the line. Like, I called out Dilly, when Dilly says, oh, I don't really care about the truth, it's just about winning. Fuck that. Right? If you're intentionally telling lies or whatever, that's ridiculous. Right? And then when he's like, attacking Casey DeSantis and more importantly her children, that I had to look up because it's like, well, if her children are like 20s, whatever, that's one thing. Like 2, 5? Come on. But at the end of the day, am I going to be more offended by that than like, I don't know, the Democratic Party trying to lock up people for their political beliefs? No. It's clearly worse. Right, that's clear. But I think it's objective that Trump supporters have been nastier. It's true. And I understand if you're a DeSantis supporter and you see him attacking you, you see Tucker attacking you, and you're like, hey, fuck all that. What about these Trump people? Look at all the horrible shit they've said. I get that. But when your response is, I always knew that Tucker was a sellout, and he's clearly just being paid, and I'll never watch him again, and fuck him, and I'll never vote Republican again if Trump wins, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, you're sort of proving his point. It's exactly what he's talking about. Yeah, I agree with you, Andy. It's stupid of Trump to do it. It's stupid of the, like, here's, like, and I swear to God, like, there is a conflict in my head right now of how much I should say. Because I feel like going scorched earth. Yes, I would absolutely vote for RFK if Nikki Haley was the nominee. Or write in someone else. But there are enough things about RFK that I like that if I thought he stood a reasonable chance my vote could help him more, I would vote for him over Nikki Haley. Undoubtedly. I would have voted for fucking Bernie Sanders over Jeb Bush in 2016. And I hate socialism. And I still would have did it. Because to me, the idea of fighting the institutional corruption is more important. Now, Bernie's since sold out and he's fucking worthless, but he spent 8 years trying to kiss the ass of the establishment. My third lake house. Good job, Bern. You did it, man. Yeah, maybe write in Vivek or something, but... Anywho. Part of me feels like going scorched earth, but then the other part of me is like, dude, I won't outright lie. I won't do that. Like, for example, when Dr. Oz was the nominee in Pennsylvania, and I'm going to events and I'm meeting Dr. Oz, I told him the truth. I don't like you. I did not want you to be the candidate. I hope you prove me wrong. Everybody knew because I criticized Dr. Oz on my channel. Everybody knew. I told people that I called him out. And yet, where was I at leading into that election? I still thought Dr. Oz was preferable. I legitimately was voting for Dr. Oz, and I told people the reasons I thought they should go vote for Dr. Oz. I could have just been destroying Oz for how terrible his campaign was the whole time, but I bit my tongue somewhat. I didn't outright lie or anything like that. I just said, the more important goal at this point is to try to bring people together to push them over the finish line, even though I think it won't happen. And that's what I did. Same thing here. I could go scorched earth on a bunch of Trump supporters that are like, I'd never vote for DeSantis and fuck DeSantis and blah, blah, blah. And go scorched earth on a bunch of DeSantis people who are like, I'd never vote for Trump and I'd rather Biden to win. I could, but I'm trying to keep my shit together. Because I know after 4 weeks, once the Iowa caucus is done, then it's going to be like, okay, now we got to try to bring people together. But I will say, just for this, I don't understand the stupidity of both sides. Forget about the morality. Forget about, you can't say this, you can't say that. And I understand that might piss you off on either side. But the strategic, how does DeSantis not see How does his campaign not see, like, dude, we can't alienate Trump voters. We need to make the case. Like, Vivek is almost doing it. Almost. Vivek's making the case, like, I'm reaching out to Trump people, his supporters. That's my core audience as well. However, he's not saying this is what I would do better than Trump necessarily. He's saying, here's my plan. Trump's great. DeSantis, I said this from the get-go. His lane should have been respect Trump, think what he did was great, even if he personally attacks me or whatever. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in, I think I'm the best man for the job to save this country, and it's going in a very dark place. So I'm not going to get into the petty squabbles. I will, however, praise Trump where he deserves praise, but I think that there are several things that I would do better and that weren't the greatest with him, such as COVID policy. I'm not going to sit here and say he's evil, cultist, blah, 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 and if he wants to keep insulting me and shit, whatever. I'm not even dealing with it. Colorado Republican tweet. Let's see what it says. You won't have to because we will withdraw from the primary as a party and convert to a pure caucus system if this is allowed to stand. Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's directly from them then. I don't understand the Trump supporters either, though. Like, if I talk to, like, a lot of these online, I don't know, like, the online influencers. I don't have personal communications with most of them. But if I'm talking to, like, Dilly from the Dilly meme team or whatever, or if I'm talking to Roger Stone, and I'd be like, what do you think about the polls that Trump's like 40 points ahead of DeSantis? They'd be like, yeah, absolutely believe them. I'm like, okay. Then at this point, why attack DeSantis so hard? Right? If they're not a threat, if they have no chance, wouldn't you be out there and be like, hey man, wasn't the right time to run. We don't like some of the things you did, but, you know, we're more than happy to bring your voters onto our camp. We understand why people would have went for you. We thought he was a great governor. But it's over now. It's almost like they don't believe it. Why would you be so viscerally attacking these people unless you still thought they were a credible threat? I don't know. I don't know, Econoboy. It's up in the air. I can see a case for it. I think he would actually fire some people. Would he be less institutionalist than Trump in 2016? Probably. It'd be hard not to. Why? What did Trump do to drain the swamp in 2016? You tell me. What did you think was very much draining the swamp? Pointing John Bolton? Or letting Bill Barr bury the sedition against him? Which one would you say was more anti-institutional? What do you think? You think, does it inspire you that Trump would be anti-institutionalist? What do you mean? He challenged. Yeah, he said they're shit and then did nothing. Do you think it's anti-institutionalist when he's out there saying, actually, I think Cuomo did a pretty good job with COVID? Better than DeSantis. You think it's institutional when he's saying, vaccine, Project Warp Speed, great victory for me. You think that's anti-institutional? You think it's anti-institutional when he's saying, Gavin Newsom, great guy? Maybe he's learned his lesson. Maybe not. That's the decision I have to make. Trump's rhetoric and his fire, if implemented, would be preferable to DeSantis and what apparently his plans will be, but will Trump do it? Why can't he keep them? Why can't he keep promises? Vivek's absolutely right. The biggest problem's not the actual, like everyone says, well, you need Congress to do this. No, the biggest problem is the bureaucratic state, which falls under the privilege of the executive branch. With the stroke of a pen, they could eliminate 90% of the bureaucracy. The president could. He's the boss. He could do that. So why couldn't DeSantis fulfill those promises? Again, I don't understand. What good is it? Like, what if there's 100% chance of a guy to win? Like, it's like, dude, you could Trump's only got a 1% chance, but here's this guy. Well, we'll just say DeSantis, but it'd be different policy. I won't say that. Here's Bob Smith. You vote for Bob Smith. Now, Bob Smith's fiscally conservative, says that he's going to have balanced budgets and things like that. very likable family man. Everyone seems to like him, even Trump-connected people. But, he says he'll consider, slashing the FBI's budget 5%. That's his big plan to fight corruption. 100% chance to win, though. Oh, a realistic plan that could be achieved. It sounds good. I'll vote for him. Oh, what's that? I'm still being censored on social media? Their FBI still targeting Catholics? It's still targeting parents at school board meetings? It's still covering up for the crime? Well, at least they achieved a workable plan that was able to be achieved. We wouldn't want them to promise something radical, because after all, that might not be achievable. Bullshit. Yeah, Vivek, the way Vivek talks, if all things equal, right? If I could see into a crystal ball and say every one of these candidates, if elected, would literally fulfill every promise they're making, Vivek, hands down, is the best candidate. Not even close. Not even close. Leaves the rest in the dust. But the question is, will he do that? The former pharmaceutical guy that seemed to be writing books that are sort of directly antithetical to the things he's saying now? Is he just blowing smoke up my ass? And more importantly, does he even reasonably have a chance to win? Probably not. I just said. I don't have any... There doesn't seem... There's serious credibility... Yeah, I get you. There's serious credibility issues, and he doesn't have a chance to win. Now, I don't even know exactly... When is the primary in Pennsylvania? My guess is... My vote in the primary will be irrelevant because it'll probably be decided before it gets to Pennsylvania. Is my guess. Let's see here. Pennsylvania's primaries are April 23rd. Yeah, that puts them in the bottom. So, most likely, by the time I get to vote in the primary, it'll be irrelevant. Yeah, if somehow Trump would be removed, or, let's even take the idea of Trump being removed. Like, God forbid, Trump have a heart attack tomorrow and pass away. Vivek's chance of winning would increase, but I don't think he would have enough support. I think DeSantis would win running away at that point. It's just my guess. Vivek would certainly get a bigger share of the pie, but I don't think it would be enough to overcome DeSantis, is my guess. I don't know what to say, though. I mean, furthermore, there's another argument. It's a complicated argument that someone being like, fuck you, your wife's horrible, your kids are horrible, blah, blah, blah. You're not going to get any credit. I have criticized that, both on stream here, like last night, and on Twitter. I've been like, what the fuck? This is terrible. But, in a non-moral way, but a strategic way, is being like, I'll never vote for your candidate. He's a Democrat in disguise. He's evil. He's horrible, blah, 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 blah. All of those things morally are way more in bounds. I don't have a problem with that shit morally at all. But is it strategically worse? I don't know. Again, it's not fair if you're a DeSantis supporter to say this, but Trump's potty mouth and his influences are baked into the cake. Everybody knows what to expect. For Christ's sake, he called Ted Cruz's dad he made fun of his wife's looks. Then he called his dad the Zodiac Killer. Like, did you think it'd be different this time around? I'm not saying that makes it okay. Like, I was criticizing Trump for calling out Chip Roy. Stupid. Bigger battles to be fought. I don't get it. Particularly if you're Trump and you believe the polls, it's like, at this point, why make more enemies on the Republican side? If you're Trump's team and you believe the polls, why the fuck not say, dude, unless something catastrophic happens, we have this shit wrapped up. We're not going to debate. We're going to just stand pat. But we're also going to play lovey-dovey with the other Republicans. Hey, Chip Roy, pretty decent conservative. Hasn't always done things I like. We've had our squabbles. Totally respect you endorsing DeSantis. Because you're like, DeSantis is like 4% in the polls. We don't give a fuck. Nikki Haley's a bigger threat to us than him, according to the polls. Okay? But again, I don't get it. It's like they don't believe the polls. Aftershock asked me the other day, do I think the polls are correct? Yes and no. I think directionally they're correct. I think that at this point it would be too brazen. It's not like the polls have Trump 3% up versus the Republican field. Like, he's certainly winning. That doesn't mean he will win. But I would say the chances of him winning, particularly after today, are probably damn near 95%. Right? But that doesn't mean the polls are accurate and that they're completely accurate, and it's irrelevant. The distance that the Democrats and the establishment will go to take down Trump and ensure he doesn't win will blow your fucking mind. And I told people this, I don't know how many times I have to say it, going into 2020, when I was on all these Republican panels and they were like, Trump's going to win 48 states, it's in the bag, look how great things are going. I was like, wait and fucking see. First off, they will intentionally sabotage the economy. I didn't say it'll be through some virus. I didn't say that. But I knew it. I said, you don't think that these people will be willing to do anything to stop this guy? Anything. There is no limit. Take away the indictments. It's Trump versus Biden with the establishment influence. Well, if it was today, Trump wins. But it won't be today. The establishment's going to... How many rape accusations will come out? How many other criminal accusations will come out? How many scandals will come out? I believe that Trump would win today. I do believe that. I don't necessarily believe the polls that he would win as much. The Democrats need time to gin up scandals and to gin up anger at Trump. Right now they don't have it because Trump... We're not in the general season yet. It doesn't bring up... You will see, even without any shady business... Let me ask you this, Aftershock. Anyone can answer this question. What was Ron DeSantis' best day in his campaign? What was his best day? Anyone? What do you think Ron DeSantis' best day in his campaign was? Does anyone have a guess? I know what it was. Easy. It's the same best day of, say, Nikki Haley. It's the same best day of Joe Biden. Nope. Same best day as... Nope. It's his first day. That's the best day. Because our system, at this point, the preferable candidate... No, it's not even close. Like, I agree. His best moment to me was the debate with Newsom. But that wasn't the day that there was the most enthusiasm for DeSantis. The day you renounce. And then comes the scandals and the criticisms and the negativity. And the shine wears off you. The reason that Joe Biden was such a good candidate in 2020 for the Democrats, not to necessarily win an election, but the reason that he's so good is because he's a fucking human vegetable. That's good for them. The ideal Democratic candidate would be a nameless, faceless person that is announced and put on the ballot the day before the election. That Democrat candidate would fucking kill. Would clean up elections. Absolutely demolish any potential Republican. John Doe announced the day before the election, the Monday before the election, would clean up, as long as they're on the ballot. Why? Because there is no, these are my policies, my policies are good. It's, we hate that guy. We hate Trump. We hate him. That's how Biden won. The less Biden said, the better. Stay in the fucking basement and don't say anything. Nah, I don't think he should have waited. I think if he thought he was the man for the job, he should have done it. Who's to say what happens in the next? Remember when Chris Christie was a superstar and then... You wait, you may never get a chance. If you're legitimately running because you think you're the best person for the job, you don't say, well, I'll wait because I think my political futures will be better if I wait. No, it's a big mistake. Especially for presidency, which is a 4-year wait and not a 2-year wait. So once it's confirmed that Trump's the nominee, the Democrats are going to go apeshit, and their supporters are going to go fucking nuts and lather themselves up into a fury, and it's going to drive out intensity. And so again, if I could bring up points today, circling back to the Colorado story. It's to try to encourage some lunatic to commit some acts of violence. Don't take the bait. Thank you, that man. I appreciate it. I really do. Merry Christmas to you as well. It will be used to disparage the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court doesn't allow it, which I don't think that they will. So if the Democrats win in 2024, this will be used as one of the moments to say, we need to pack the court, or we need to remove certain justices. Mark my words. I would say you heard it here first, but you kind of did, but not from me. You heard it from Ian Nova, who I had it in my head. I was leading up to it, but he jumped the gun. Good for him, man. It's smart. I haven't heard anyone else say that. But the real lesson to take from this is, we're on the precipice, man. We're on the precipice. Yeah, K. Marco says, dude has never been charged with insurrection. He's guilty until proven innocent. Yep. And my guess is 95% of Democrat voters, politicians, pundits totally agree. Like, yeah, keep him off the ballot. Absolutely. And they'll say it was corrupt or inept when the Supreme Court, if they ultimately say, no, you can't do that. No, I totally agree, Bandit. I completely agree. Molotov cocktails are lethal weapons. Absolutely. They are weapons that can cause not just death to an individual, but are designed to cause potential fatal harm in a group setting, like a grenade. That's why I make that point all the time. Like, those are lethal weapons. Where were the lethal weapons deployed on January 6th? I didn't see one. But I saw them deployed on May 30th. No one gives a shit. I don't want to blackpill you. I don't. The idea, like, I'm not as up on shit as, like, Alex Jones or someone like that would talk about sort of the end game. But my belief is, I do believe that they want a globalist system that makes, basically, we're just chattel. That these people in these institutions want to erode nation states because they want sort of a globalist system where there are those with power that are basically a separate species and then the rest of us. And we're only useful as work or playthings or whatever for those people that are basically a different species than us. That's what I believe. But I believe their plan was sort of a slow march to that. I believe that plan was accelerated with the election of Donald Trump because they said, oh boy, now there's an actual chance that a powerful leader could go against this. And so they upped the intensity of the attacks. So far it's been working, by the way. That acceleration is continuing exponentially. It may de-accelerate if we would just say, okay, no Trump. Chris Christie versus Joe Biden. They might say, okay, we can take our foot off the pedal a little. But the inevitable drive to authoritarianism will continue. The best case I can make for Donald Trump is, apparently they still think he's a threat. That's the best case. So while you could be blackpilled and say, hey, this is really bad. Oh my God, look at this. Not only are they doing this, a clear attack on our elections and democracy, but it's being massively supported by almost everyone that identifies with the Democratic Party. But they're doing it for a reason. They're afraid of something. Now, to shit on all of this at the end, though, I think it'll work. I do. I think we're fucked. I do think that. I don't think it'll be like Mad Max style. But I think we're on the slow, inexorable march to people like me just won't have a voice. It'll just, no, sorry. You'll self-censor even more. There'll be small cultural victories and the trans issue and stuff like that. But I do think this will work. I think that it is so ingrained in these institutions that I don't see how without. It's like we're in the third quarter. We're playing football. We're in the third quarter and we're down by 40 points. I guess we could win, but we have to do everything almost perfectly. And I don't see it. I don't. I just don't. Maybe the best case scenario will be we hit fucking rock bottom, and then enough people that have cheered this shit on go, my God, what have I done? I don't know. Yeah, it's not going to be this catastrophe like you think. It's not going to be like, well, that's it. I'm going to be put in a cage tomorrow. It'll be little shit. They'll lock you down when they feel like it. But only when they feel that there's a potential threat to them. It'll be like a slow deflation of a balloon. And even as that balloon deflates, you'll still be able to find important things in life like your family, your loved ones. If you're in rural, you could balkanize to areas where you could delay the inevitable. And there's always a chance that it gets so fucking disgustingly shitty that people start to wake up. That could happen. But you gotta go through it. You gotta hit that rock bottom. But there'll be, it's not like we're gonna be, I'm not like some prepper that's like, oh, well, we'll be eating fucking, cannibals and shit to stay alive because food will be that scarce. It'll get bad. You'll see man-made horrors beyond your comprehension. You will. Yeah, like V for Vendetta, something like that, yeah. So. However, in the words of the great Steve Ranella, which you should watch the show Meat Eater, even if you're not a hunter. It's a fantastic show. By the way, I got my brother-in-law and my father-in-law tickets to go see Steve Ranella and the Meat Eater crew in an event they had. They had a blast. I can't wait to... I haven't talked to them since. I know my wife's talked to them, but I can't wait to talk to them. They got pictures with all the guys. Meat Eater's a fantastic show. Steve Ranella, really amazing guy. Just really is. I've talked about this before. There's this episode of... I don't know if he's hunting elk or deer, but he's bummed out. One of the things that makes that show great is most hunting shows you watch, it's the same thing. They get the big deer or the big fish, blah, blah, blah at the end, and that's that. He'll miss. Or in this episode, he was really upset because worse than missing is wounding. He didn't get a clean kill, and so he's tracking this deer. And he said this line that's always stuck with me. He said, he's like, I'm not going to find this fucking deer. I'm not going to find it. The thing's going to run away. It's horrible. And you can tell he feels terrible about it. And he says, because he thinks he's not going to find it, he says, I'm pessimistic with my mind, but optimistic with my feet. And what he means by that is, in his head, he's saying, this isn't going to work out. This isn't going to work out. But his feet, the actions are, I'm going to keep moving forward like it is going to work out. Because there's zero chance it works out if I give up. So even in your head, if you think, man, it's not going to work out. We're not going to win. We're not going to win the 2024 election. Or even if we do, nothing significant will change. It's irrelevant to the actions that I will take. It will encourage me to try even harder. And I take comfort in that. But I'm also in a different situation than most people, being that I'm the luckiest person in the world. I happen to have a tremendous family, a tremendous wife, a tremendous son. We are incredibly lucky with our health, most importantly with our son's health, with my wife's health. I have a great immediate family with my parents, my brothers, my sister. I have a great set of in-laws. I have a great community I live in. So I'm lucky. And I understand if you're not in that position and you see all this dark shit about politics and stuff like this, that it might take you to a darker place. And I'm not some manosphere person. I'm not some, red pill person that's going to say, this is what you need to do to get your life together. I don't know, man. You know how I got my life together to the slight extent that it is? Because I met, the greatest woman in the world. And I had the greatest kid in the world. And I had awesome parents. Because I won the fucking lottery. That's basically it. I have my opinions. I could give small amounts of advice, but I would be bullshitting you if I did. I was an alcoholic who basically drank my way through college and pissed away a bunch of advantages that I had. That's who I was. And still I fell ass backwards into one of the luckiest, Yeah, and I have a community of people. It's amazing how lucky I am. It really is. And I understand not everyone has that. So you see shit like this and you're like, wow, this is dark, this is depressing. But don't despair. Your personal shit's still more important. But what if they lock me up? Yeah, I totally agree. I get it. What do you say to the January 6 people that are locked up that didn't do anything? It's tough. Aftershock says, left field, but a lot of the blame was on the average activist. I think a lot of us have great ideas and know what to do, but we don't want the job. We let people who want power win. When the ones who should have power are those that actually don't want it. Can you blame them? Let me ask you this. Who in their right mind would run as a conservative Supreme Court justice at this point? After seeing the Kavanaugh situation. Maybe if you're a lesbian woman of color, you'd say, I got a little protection. If you're some white dude, maybe you'd do it. Are you running for office? What's stopping you? I ran. It was a fucking joke. Now, I could say I could have done this better. I could have done this. I had zero chance, though. But that was a weird system. It was a comfy system. It was a special election. I did. I ran for Congress. I could run again. I'll tell you. Instead of leaving you with a positive spin, I'm gonna black pill you even more. You ready? You want to know 40% of the time what I really want to do? And I mean seriously. And I'll tell you why I don't, what the big reason is. 40% of the time, you want to know what my opinion is? Quit this channel. Throw away this fucking phone. Never look at Twitter again. Never look at any fucking political story ever again in my entire life. Go work out. Spend time with my wife and family, which I have limited time with anyways. And say, fuck it, I tried. Probably 30 to 40% of the time, that's what I feel like. Now, a lot of that's because how limited time I have with my family. It's fucking depressing to me. It's really, really hard when I work fucking 90, 100-hour weeks to go home and be like, oh, I got to do a Twitter Spaces with John Burke for 2 hours. Oh, I got a debate set up. Oh, Hippy Dippy Championship, should I do that? Or hang out with the coolest kid in the world. But I do owe my audience something, that's one. I do care about this shit, and I know if I quit, I would come back to it. I would never fulfill it. Because I enjoy it. Because I enjoy reading this stuff. I enjoy debating. I enjoy talking about it. I enjoy my audience. I feel like enough people have donated, whether it be money or time, invested in me in that way, that it would be unfair. And I understand that much of it isn't because my displeasure of doing this. It's because my displeasure of not having enough time to do all the other things in my life that I want to do. If I was only working 40 hours a week, I'd be chomping at the bit to stream every night because I'd be hanging out with my kids so much more. So it'd be okay. But I don't know. I'll tell you right now. Again, I told myself I wouldn't say this, but I'll tell you right now. I'm so fucking over, particularly these anti-Trump people. And I told Aftershock this. I'm so fucking over this mindset, right? And if you're criticizing Trump, I've been there, man. I'm not shitting on you for that. If you're like, fuck Trump, I'd take DeSantis over Trump any day of the week. I'd take Vivek over Trump. Hell, even if you somehow think you would take Nikki Haley over Trump, I think you're insane. But I'm not saying I wouldn't be friends with you or anything like that, okay? But I can't get over, and it is somewhat personal arrogance and pettiness on my part. That's true. There's some of that. But I assure you it's deeper than that. How many people that are criticizing Trump now said a goddamn thing when it mattered? How many people were making these criticisms when I was in 2017 and 18 and 19 and 20? Where were they? When it mattered. When you could have convinced Trump. You know where many of those DeSantis people that now hate Trump, you know where they were? Well, many of them were in one of these two groups. One, they were always never Trumpers. And now they've just latched onto someone else that they think has the best chance to beat Trump. So they fucking hated him from the get-go. Or second, they were kissing Trump's ass. That's where they were. So when I was out there and I was saying shit like, what the fuck are you doing bombing Syria? What are you doing leaving Bill Barr in there? What are you doing? Disclose all this shit. Why aren't you pardoning Assange? What the fuck are you doing? What are you doing with these massive spending bills? What do you mean you're criticizing governors in countries that are not locking down? What are you doing? And you know what was happening to me in my little channel? A bunch of people tell me, I thought you were a Trump supporter. You're a secret Democrat. Fuck you. We're leaving here. Fuck you, man. Great. Meanwhile, I had influencers reaching out to me saying, oh boy, Rob, I'd love to make those criticisms of Trump, but I'm afraid I'd lose subscribers. Cool. But now that you got your little community centered around someone like DeSantis, now it's okay. Now you don't have to worry about that. You carved a little niche out for yourself, but you weren't comfortable until you had that niche. Now let me be clear. I ain't saying this about all the DeSantis influencers. I'll tell you straight up, the one that I work with, John Burke, he ain't ever sent me a fucking message like that. I ain't talking about him. And I ain't about to squeal who sent me private messages and shit like that. It wasn't like really big people. I'm not saying I was talking to Jack Posobiec or, Roger Stone or something. It wasn't people that necessarily you hear from much anymore. But that's the truth of it. Well, and there's no shame in admitting it, like, yeah. But the arrogance of some of these people that are like, fuck Trump and the lockdowns and blah, blah, blah. Like, Thomas Massey said something the other day. I like Massey. I've been very heavy at criticizing Massey when he signed the fucking continuing resolution finance bill there like 8 months ago. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? The reason I'm hard on him is because I think he's one of the good guys. And I'm like, dude, I'm not going to bother like tweeting at AOC like, why are you signing this bill? Of course she is. I get it. But when you see someone like Massey doing it, that's where the criticism's warranted. Massey puts this video out the other day, and let me see if I can find this. It's slight, but it just. No, Massey here is going to rightfully criticize Trump on a lot of his COVID shit. Fair enough. But I want you to listen to what he's saying and see if you can tell what my pet peeve is. It's 2.5 minutes here. And again, I like Massey. I like DeSantis.
The day before they started 15 days to slow the spread, I could see this coming down. And I tweeted, I said, I fear that the infringements of our liberties in the next year are going to be greater than FDR's internment of Japanese Americans in camps. Now, I did that to kind of upset the Democrats and remind them that, like, the tyranny came from their president, right? So they got mad at that, but unfortunately what I said was true. Like, all of our, and there still are Republicans. There's still presidential candidates who don't get this. They do not. There's one presidential candidate who was responsible for perpetuating some of this tyranny, okay? And I was taking the brunt of that. And then there's some candidates, we don't know where they were when COVID happened, right? I think they were trying to sell drugs and, and more data to the government on people. Okay. And then there are just people who went along to get along. Okay. All of those people constitutionally are disqualified for service.
And what do you think my pet peeve is with what he just said? That he was criticizing Trump and Vivek? No problem. Totally fair game. So then what was it? What was it about that I was like, wait a minute. Anyone? Does anyone have any clue what I thought? No, it has nothing to do because Trump is guilty of the amendment. That's not it. I have no problem with Massey saying Trump went along with this shit. I think that's disqualified. I don't have a problem with that. The problem I have is this. Yeah, you missed it, Roland. The problem I have is this. He said that anyone that perpetuated the tyranny of 15 days to slow the spread and shit like that, or sat idly by while it happened, is disqualified for being president of the United States. Now, that's a belief you could have. Fine. But, who's he sitting next to? Who's he up there endorsing? I think Fetterman's done some shit lately that I approve of, and that's one thing that I could actually praise Fetterman for. Thanks, RJ Buck. Go bomb Gaza more. See ya. If it's disqualifying to have bought in for 15 days to slow the spread, Ron DeSantis locked down. He did. End of discussion. Then, according to Massey's own rhetoric there, he's disqualified. Right? You can't say, well, he's disqualified less than Trump and Vivek. Because even though he went along with these disqualifying things, he did a little less than them. That's stupid. So, why is Massey endorsing DeSantis? He seems to literally be contradicting himself. Now, I understand what his answer would be. His answer would be, well, yeah, okay, almost everyone got swept up in the wave of this initially, but DeSantis was one of the first people to realize it, and he got a lot of flack, for pushing back, and he's apologized. But that's not what you said, dude. And I see many DeSantis supporters that are like, oh yeah, Trump's disqualified because of this shit. And you're like, okay, well then, how about, I guess you're voting for Vivek because he wasn't in office? So he never voted for this shit? DeSantis did. And they'd be like, but Vivek was a pharmaceutical guy. Okay, then who? Who are you voting for? Oh, DeSantis because he did that disqualifying shit less? Well, then it doesn't sound too disqualifying, does it? Just saying. Again, I like DeSantis and I like Massey. And I don't have a problem attacking Trump on COVID. Why? Because I was attacking Trump on COVID in real time. When he was saying lockdowns and blah, blah, blah. And I think it's bullshit that he's trying to rewrite history. And I think it's bullshit that he's trying to say, like, Cuomo did better than DeSantis. Fucking ludicrous. Doesn't sound like a guy that's going to hold people accountable over COVID. I thought it was bullshit that he was giving Anthony Fauci awards. All of that's fair game. But you can't say, well, anyone that supported lockdowns is disqualified. Guess what, motherfuckers? I'm not running. Maybe I should be running for president. Then I could say, there's a guy who had it right. Me! DeSantis didn't. And it's okay to admit, like, okay, dude, I fucked up. I won't make that mistake again. But clearly I was better than these people. That's a totally fair argument. But to be like, well, it's disqualifying if you embraced lockdowns 15 days to slow the spread. Like I did, but less. And that shit matters. It's like when Biden came out and said it's a human rights abuse to have kids in cages. We'd never do that. It's human rights abuse. Then he had way more kids in cages. It's like, dude, you didn't say, yeah, this is bad. If I get in there, we're going to try to work on it. We need to try to, like, make things better here. That's totally reasonable. But if you're making some claim like, this is so immoral, it's disqualifying. Human rights abuse. This dude's intentionally committing human rights abuses. And then you get in there and you're like, well, we didn't really mean that. Name me the person in Washington right now. Name me one that's either a candidate running for president or some other office, or a congressman, senator, whatever. Name me the person who you can't point to and say they did some bad shit, some fucked up shit. Chip Roy's pretty good. Wanted to get rid of Paxton, said Paxton should step down in Texas. Defended Liz Cheney and her horse shit. Massey voted for that spending bill. You learn to accept. You're like, I'm never going to find someone I agree with 100%. Rand Paul hasn't been perfect. You dig, you could find some stuff on him as well. But Rand Paul is one of my favorites. I'd put him near top tier. The janitor, right? The point I'm trying to make is that's not disqualifying. There's a threshold you could say, like, I ain't voting for Nikki Haley no matter what. I won't even vote for Trump if Nikki Haley is the VP. That's beyond my threshold for being a part of the swamp, and my issue's corruption. She's corrupt. Would embrace the very corrupt institutions that I want to see challenged. So it'd be irrelevant to vote for. It'd be Biden with makeup. That's it. Because she wouldn't be running shit either. It'd still be the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the IRS. But the point I'm trying to make is, like, when I'm talking to DeSantis people and I'm trying to make, you know, like, look, dude, this is how bad Biden will be. If we have a pro-establishment candidate that wins, it's, you know, and they're like, I can't vote for Trump because there's so many things that are disqualifying. Like the lockdown, you know, his rhetoric on lockdowns, or the Second Amendment was anti-constitutional. Like, and John talks about that. That's fair enough. There's fair criticism of Trump with the Second Amendment. And you could be like, that's anti-constitutional. I won't support someone that was against the Constitution. So is lockdowns. DeSantis did that. That's anti-constitutional. Does that mean you're going to reject him? Well, but it was not as bad. Okay, so then you're willing to accept people that are violating, if not the legalness of the Constitution, the sort of principle of it. And you're like, well, no one's perfect. He's better. Far better. All reasonable arguments. But then the argument, if you violated the Constitution on principle, I can't defend you, I can't support you, I can't vote for you. And the truth of it is, most of these people that are like DeSantis people that are like, I would rather see, I'm not voting for Trump if he's the nominee. The truth of it, most of them were either never Trumpers or they're fucking personally insulted. That's the truth. And I think that's fucking stupid. That's what I think. And they're like, no, it's because he went against constitutional principles of the Second Amendment and with lockdowns and shit. And I can't support anyone who would violate the principles of the Constitution. You mean like DeSantis? Well, that's different. He violated the principles of the Constitution less. We didn't know at the time. He didn't know at first. We thought, starting to sound an awful lot like what you're criticizing Trump for. That's my take. That's why they're like, yeah, okay, maybe they're corruptly going after Trump, but he did dumb shit and he's guilty of this shit. You know, he's guilty of some of it. That's why there's a lot that are like that. Because they personally are insulted by Trump. Because they have been attacked by Trump supporters, or the people they like have been attacked by Trump or his supporters. Just say it. If that's what you believe, just say it. I think it's ludicrous. I think it's stupid. Trump, Vivek, and DeSantis could come out tomorrow and be like, we've all come together just for this one video to say, fuck you, robnoerr, you fat piece of shit. You disgust us. We think you're the fucking worst commentator we've ever heard. Every one of us hate you. We've been sitting around talking all night about how you're such a piece of shit and your family sucks and blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, fuck these people. I hate them. Well, I'm going to vote for them over DeSantis or over Biden. Yeah, I mean, that law's iffy on Andres. It really is. The way that I've heard DeSantis supporters, again, of which I'm partially one, explain this but it had to do with financing. That it wasn't just that these groups on college campuses were speaking pro-Hamas things. It's that they were financially contributing to Hamas, which is a terror group, and that's why they're being outlawed. I don't know if that's true. It sounds shady to me. It does. I think a lot of people are just like, but DeSantis is good, so if he did it, it's okay. But when Trump does things like wanting to... I mean, again, there's a lot of DeSantis people that I've heard say that, and then I have the correct take on the like, hey man, you can't just destroy some satanic idol. You can't do that. Free speech. Okay, then why can you ban pro-Hamas groups? Now, there is a difference if there's financial support going to alleged terror groups. I get it, but... yeah, it's iffy. That's certainly a point worth pointing out. I don't know. The whole thing's a fucking... like, for me, it's amazing because I'm like, I feel like I'm shouting to the heavens, like, by myself for fucking years and years and years and years and years I talked about this corruption. For years. And now, finally, you know, I have people that are like, we agree, there's all this corruption. It's like, great. Well, let's come together and let's finally do something about it. And it's like, nah, we hate the people on our side even more. I hate him more. Fuck Trump. I hate him the most. Fuck DeSantis. I'd never vote for him. What are you doing? What are you doing? Maybe it's what's good for your brand. Hey man, I'm making a lot of Patreon dollars, getting a lot of subs. A lot of people buying my newsletter now. Getting a lot of appearances on, you know, prominent shows. Fuck all that. Fuck it. I mean, to each their own. I don't give a shit. I don't care. But it's like, oh my God. It's easy for me to say I'm a little shit streamer. That this is a hobby for me. So it's easy for me. If, you know, if this was paying the bills, if I quit my job and all of a sudden I'm relying on income for this stream, maybe that changes. Maybe I'm like, ooh, it starts to subconsciously or consciously infiltrate. Like, oh, my brand would be better if. And this guy, you know, I'm Team DeSantis, so fuck it. I gotta be anti-Trump. There's no popularity in, like, not being as extreme as you can. Picking a side and being... there's no popularity in it. I should have just picked a side. I'd be way bigger. But I didn't. But I don't give a shit. I don't know. Anyways, I'm rambling. I'll wrap up here. But yeah, I mean, obviously, aside from all that shit... and listen, I'm going to stop talking about it. I just don't... like, you know, the last thing... you know... I mean, I probably will lie. I'll probably be talking about it again. But at this point, it's like, I don't give a fuck. Knock the shit out of each other. I don't care. Let's get to the fucking general. I don't care. And then my job's going to be trying to convince DeSantis supporters to vote for Trump in the general, or Trump supporters to vote for DeSantis in the general. And that's it. That's going to be my job. And I'm going to try to make a compelling case and do what I can, both on the ground and on my channel, to point out the importance of why we have to prevent another pro-establishment candidate for winning in 2024. That's going to be my job. Can I leave on a hopeful note? Yeah, that's where I'm going to be. I'm not going to be friendly firing. And I don't give a shit. I don't care if that means that people are going to be insulting me and this, that, and the other, and whatever. You know, I'm going to be trying my best. And I'm going to have to fucking swallow my tongue a lot. My prediction is I'll be talking to a lot of pro-DeSantis people that are pissed that Trump won the primary. And I'm going to try to talk them into why it's important to vote for Trump, even if they hate him. You know? And I think it'll be fun. I do. And I think it'll be, you know, a challenge, which I'm looking forward to. But that's going to be my goal. Look, like, as far as hopeful notes and stuff, like I feel like I'm beating a dead horse. I say this all the time, but it's like, you got a girlfriend, you got a mom, you got a dad, you got a brother or sister, you got a town. Maybe you don't have any of that. Maybe go volunteer at a homeless shelter. You'd be amazed. I used to go homeless. Homeless is fine too, but elderly home. When I was young, we used to go visit my grandma and grandpa in the nursing home 3 days a week for at least 2 hours at a time. And it was amazing. It's like a 13, 14, 15-year-old talking to some of the elderly people in there, the stories, and just how much they would light up being doing that. There's meaningful stuff you can do. Go to church. Political high notes? The best political high note that I could give you is, they're doing this because they still feel threatened at some point, and maybe this will wake people up. Like, you want to here, I'll give you a political high note. You ready? Let me show you something. I happen to notice it. You want a political high note? Bed still shut there. Looks high.
They have just tried to bar President Trump from the Colorado ballot using an unconstitutional maneuver that is a bastardization of the 14th Amendment to our U.S. Constitution. This was a provision, Section 3, that was designed to bar Confederate members, people who switched to the Confederacy, from actually being able to serve. That's very different than what's at issue here, to say the least. This is a hollowed out husk of what the country was built on. The basic principle that we, the people, select our leadership, not the unelected elite class in the back of palace halls. That's old world Europe, not the United States. That's why I'm making a pledge today that I will withdraw. I pledge to withdraw from the Colorado GOP primary ballot unless and until Trump's name is restored. And I demand that Ron DeSantis and Chris Christie and Nikki Haley do the same thing, or else these Republicans are simply complicit in this unconstitutional attack on the way we conduct our constitutional republic. I refuse to be complicit in that. I think what they're doing is wrong, and I think it's up to Republicans to step up and stand up with a spine for our country's future. That's really what's at stake, whether we, the people, actually have a say in deciding who leads this country. Yes, it would be easier for other Republicans like me who are running in this race to say, hey, if Trump is sidelined, there's our opportunity. No doubt other candidates are probably privately celebrating with their corporate sponsors. That's not the right thing to do. I think the most useful thing that every GOP candidate can do right now is to join me in that pledge. I'll say that I will withdraw from that Colorado GOP primary ballot until Trump's name is restored. This belongs to the people, not to the unelected Democratic cabal of judges in Colorado or any other state. And I demand that Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley and Chris Christie do the same thing, or else they're complicit in what this security state is trying to do to shut down Trump. I stand by that, and I expect them to do the right thing.
That's not your optimist mode. That's not your hope. You want to see what the hope is? $61,000 likes. 15,000 retweets. Let's see what Vivek normally gets. 70,000 on his other tweet talking about this. Let's go to some Vivek tweets. 560 on that one. 2,000. We're getting close to 100,000 people that saw that tweet and was like, yeah, fucking enough's enough. That's your hopeful message. That's the optimistic take on this. They're attacking for a reason. They're breaking this precedent for a reason because they're desperate. And maybe it could wake enough people up that are like, what the fuck? That's it. So that's the hope I'll leave you with this evening. Anyways, normally I don't stream on Wednesdays, but I plan on to tomorrow since I'll still not be home. So it's something that I will attempt to do. I'll try to raid someone on Twitch here, though. Believe it or not, it's probably not going to happen because I don't know what's going on this computer. It keeps saying I need to log in, and I forget what my password was. So it's kind of a pain. No, wait, maybe I found it. Okay, there we go. I think I'll be good. So, who am I going to raid? I got some whispers. Oh boy. Let's see. We'd rate Amaranth. Some hot tub stream or something, right? Oh, EOD's on. We'll rate him. He's good. EOD's good. So, all right. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Look, don't get fucking crazy. Don't get too depressed or something. It's all right. We're doing all right. Even if shit doesn't work out, we're doing all right. So thank you all. You really mean a lot to me. Thank you for your financial support. Thank you for your moral support. Thank you for the content support, being here and helping with the content, because it'd be boring if it was just me. I really do appreciate it all. So I'm happy. I recommend you all be happy as well. What the hell is it? Look at this like little unibrow thing I got going on. There's something to be worried about. It's been there all night. Ah! Jeez. All right. Thanks so much. Enjoy this raid of EOD. I think you'll like it. He says he's talking about the Colorado Trump business. So hopefully that's something that you all will continue to be interested in. But I do appreciate you all. Consider following me on Twitter, I guess, and X. That's what I'm doing right now, plugging. So remember, if you're commenting like Andres there on X, it actually shows up now on my screen, so I can see it in real time. So consider following me there. I'd really appreciate it. It's just robnoerr, ROBNOERR on Twitter. So consider following me there. Thank you so much, everyone. As always, have a good one.